The river left the weeds lying in one direction, as if a giant hand had combed the whole field. Mara stood at the edge of the floodplain, with mud sucking at her borrowed boots, and stared across 46 acres she had been told were good for nothing. Brown water still shone in the lower pockets. Plastic bottles hung from branches. One of her orange survey flags had traveled 50 yards and wrapped itself around a dead cottonwood. But beneath the flattened cane, long ridges had surfaced. They ran side by side through the mud, too straight and evenly spaced to be natural. Black stumps rose from them at intervals. On the nearest ridge, something green pushed through the silt. Gabe Mercer crouched beside it and wiped mud from a pale, living shoot. "That's pear," he said. Mara looked toward the county road. Wade's truck sat on the shoulder, clean enough to reflect the clouds. Her oldest brother had driven out to see whether the flood had finished making a joke of her. He didn't get out. Gabe stood slowly. "How many did your family say were down here?" "They didn't." "No, I mean the old rows. They said there was nothing here." Across the drowned field, one row became 3, then 10, then more than she could count. Mara watched Wade's truck reverse, turn, and leave before she could ask why a man who believed this land worthless had suddenly looked afraid. 5 weeks earlier, Wade had put their father's coffee mug in the dishwasher. That was how Mara knew the house no longer belonged to her. The mug was heavy brown stoneware with Earl's feed seed printed on the side in faded yellow. Their father had used it every morning for 22 years and had not permitted anyone to wash it with soap. Hot water only, he insisted, because soap ruined the seasoning. "It's a coffee cup, Dad," Mara had told him once. "It knows what it is." Now Wade opened the dishwasher, set the mug upside down on the top rack, and added a detergent pod. Mara stood in the kitchen doorway holding a foil pan of funeral potatoes someone from Mount Olive Baptist had dropped off. There were 4 other pans in the refrigerator, each containing potatoes, cream soup, cheese, and a different family's opinion about cornflakes. "You can't put that in there," she said. Wade glanced at the mug. "Why not? Dad never used soap on it." "Well, Dad's not using it anymore." He said it without cruelty. That made it worse. Mara placed the hot pan on the stove, though it wasn't hot. She had lost track of why she was carrying it. Beyond the kitchen window, 2 men from the funeral home were loading folding chairs into a white van. The yard was stippled with tire marks, and every flat surface inside the house held a sweating pitcher or a vase of grocery store flowers. Their father had been buried that afternoon, in a navy suit he had last worn to Mara's community college graduation. Wade had delivered the eulogy. Travis had shaken hands at the cemetery gate. Mara had spent most of the service remembering that she had forgotten to clip one stubborn hair growing from their father's left ear. "You want something to eat?" she asked. "I've eaten. Everybody says that, and then at 9 they're standing over the sink with a dinner roll. I had 2 plates at church. Then you're probably legally a casserole now." Wade almost smiled. It appeared briefly and left before she could be certain. At 38, he had their father's broad chest and habit of standing with his thumbs hooked over his belt. He wore his grief as efficiency. He had arranged the casket spray, called the pastor, ordered gravel for the soft patch beside the cemetery, and corrected the obituary when the newspaper listed their father as a lifelong resident of Posey County instead of Mars Township. The correction mattered to him. "You should sit down," he said. "I sat at the funeral. That doesn't count." It was 45 minutes. Mara. The concern in his voice irritated her more than the mug. For 3 years, Wade had never told her to sit down unless someone was watching. She opened a cabinet and found a sleeve of foam cups left over from their father's last birthday. On the counter sat the good coffee maker, the one Wade's wife had brought over for visitors. Their father's old percolator had already disappeared. "Where's the silver pot?" Travis took it out to the shop. Cord was bad. "It worked yesterday. It sparked yesterday. It's been sparking since 2009. Dad said that was how you knew it was on." "Mara, could you stop?" She turned. Wade had both hands flat on the kitchen table. Between them lay a yellow legal pad, 3 envelopes, and the small calculator their father kept beside the phone. The sight of them made the room seem to tilt by half an inch. Travis came in from the back porch carrying a cardboard box marked canning jars. At 34, he was closer to Mara in age and looked less like their father, which had always allowed him to escape arguments Wade seemed born to inherit. His hair was wet from the mist outside. He set the box near the pantry and saw the table. "Oh," he said. Mara looked from him to Wade. Oh, what? Nothing. Terrific. We're already doing honesty. Wade pulled out a chair. Sit down. I thought you wanted me to rest. This won't take long. Nothing merciful had ever followed those words, not from a doctor, a mechanic, or a bell. Mara stayed standing. Wade glanced at Travis, who suddenly became interested in peeling funeral home tape from the canning jar box. We need to talk about the property, Wade said. Their father had been in the ground for 2 hours and 19 minutes. Mara checked the stove clock because it gave her somewhere else to look. You couldn't wait until tomorrow? We've got planting coming up. You planted last week? Then we've got spraying coming up. There will always be something coming up. That's exactly the point. The place can't sit in limbo. The place, not Dad's place, not our place. The word had already hardened into something with boundaries. Mara lowered herself into the chair opposite Wade. The vinyl cushion released a small, embarrassing sigh. Travis finally sat beside her. He smelled of rain and the peppermint gum he chewed when he wanted to quit smoking without actually quitting. Wade rotated the legal pad so they could see. He had divided the top page into blocks. House, barns, north, east, bottom. Figures stood beside each in his blocky handwriting. Mara read them twice without understanding. We've been over what Dad wanted, he said. No, you and Dad may have been over it. He wanted the farm kept together. He wanted his pills cut with the blue splitter too, but apparently his wishes are flexible now. Wade's eyes flicked toward the dishwasher. Travis rubbed his thumb over a worn place in the table. Can we not get into the coffee cup? I didn't bring up the coffee cup. You brought up the pill splitter. It was an example. It was a weird example. For 1 second, they were themselves again. 3 siblings trapped at a kitchen table while their father pretended not to listen from the next room. Mara nearly turned toward his recliner. It was gone. She had asked Wade to move it into the garage before the visitation, because she could not bear watching neighbors sit in the dent his body had made. Now, a pale rectangle marked the carpet where it had stood. Beside it remained one rubber tip from his walker. Wade tapped the page. The house, barns, and working acreage have to stay one unit. Splitting them 3 ways would cripple everything. Everything being your operation, mine and Travis's. Travis's thumb stopped moving. Mara looked at him. Is that what this is? He met her eyes, then glanced down. We've been farming it. I've noticed the tractors. I mean, we're set up for it. Equipment, contracts, seed accounts. And I'm set up for what? Wade slid one of the envelopes toward her. A tax map showed a long, irregular parcel outlined in yellow beside the Wabash. She recognized the road, then the bend in the river, but it took her a moment to understand that the entire shaded shape was one piece. The bottom ground, Wade said, 46.3 acres. Mara stared at the map. The Bell family called it the mud piece. Their father had used it for whatever he did not want near the house. Broken fence posts, bent gates, worn tires, an aluminum fishing boat with a tree growing through it. The river took part of it most springs and occasionally kept it through June. That floods, she said. It's floodplain, Wade replied, as though she had complimented its authenticity. There's no house. There's frontage. Frontage on what? Water? County road. The road goes underwater. Sometimes. Travis exhaled through his nose. Most years, only the low crossing does. Oh, good. I cannot get there from 2 directions. Wade pushed the map closer. It's a substantial piece of land, Mara. Then you take it. Silence entered the kitchen and made itself comfortable. Wade leaned back. That wouldn't make sense. Why? It isn't connected to my fields. It's connected to mine. You don't have fields. She looked at him. He caught the words too late. A flush rose above his collar, but he did not apologize. Outside, a car door slammed. Women's voices crossed the yard, followed by the scrape of another covered dish being rescued from a back seat. Travis lowered his voice. Nobody's trying to cheat you. Then why are we whispering? We're not whispering. You are. Wade gathered the papers into a neat stack. The land has value, more acres than the home tract, depending on how you count the woods. I'm supposed to live in the woods. You've got your job, Mara laughed once. She could not help it. Yes, I have a job. Excellent point, Wade. The nursing home paid enough to keep her old Honda running, and had paid exactly nothing during the 11 weeks she took off after their father's second stroke. She had returned on nights because he wandered after dark and slept most mornings. Wade called that arrangement convenient. Travis called it temporary until it wasn't. She looked at the 3 envelopes. What are those? Account summaries, estimated values, things we need to go through, need to, or already did. Wade's jaw tightened. Don't make this ugly. Mara heard their father in the sentence so clearly that she looked toward the empty rectangle again. Whenever Earl Bell said, "Don't make this ugly," he meant the ugliness had already happened, and he wanted quiet around it. The women from the yard came through the mudroom. Wade covered the legal pad with one forearm. Travis stood too quickly and knocked his knee against the table. Mrs. Pruitt entered carrying a coconut cake beneath a plastic dome. Behind her came Denise Ferris with a bowl of green beans and the bright, purposeful expression of a woman delivering both food and surveillance. "There she is," Mrs. Pruitt said when she saw Mara. "Honey, you look worn to a thread." "I'm still several threads," Mara said. Mrs. Pruitt hugged her anyway, pressing Mara's cheek against a cool raincoat collar. "You took such good care of that daddy of yours." Over the woman's shoulder, Mara saw Wade slide the floodplain map beneath the legal pad. Travis watched him do it. Denise began explaining how long to heat the green beans. Wade thanked her. He was good at receiving condolences. He made people feel their casseroles had arrived at the precise moment history required them. Mara stood in the middle of the kitchen while everyone discussed refrigerator space. Her father's mug waited upside down behind the dishwasher door. The map waited beneath Wade's arm. Travis opened the refrigerator and tried to fit the green beans between 4 versions of funeral potatoes. "Turn it sideways," Mara told him. "It'll spill. It has a lid. It's not a trustworthy lid." Despite herself, she reached past him and rearranged the pans. She had been fitting other people's offerings into this house for 3 years. By the time the women left, Wade had put the papers back in his leather folder. "We'll finish later," he said. "No." Mara closed the refrigerator. "We'll finish now." Wade paused. "If I take that land," she said, "you and Travis keep everything else?" "The farm stays intact. That wasn't my question." Travis pressed his gum into its wrapper. Wade held Mara's gaze. Yes. There it was, clean and ordinary. No shouting. No slammed fist. Just her oldest brother saying yes in the kitchen where she had fed their father by hand. Mara looked at Travis. He did not say yes. He did not have to. "Say it," Mara told him. Travis looked at the gum wrapper between his fingers. "Wade's right about keeping the farm together. That isn't what I asked you. It's what matters. To who? To all of us. No, to both of you. Apparently there's an acreage requirement for being included in all of us." Wade closed his leather folder. "This is why I didn't want to do it today." "You did do it today. I wanted you to see the situation before people started putting ideas in your head." Mara stared at him. "What people? Anybody. Friends. Somebody at work. A lawyer who gets paid by the hour to turn 3 siblings against each other. We seem to be managing that for free." Travis stood and went to the sink, though there was nothing in his hands to wash. He ran water over his fingers, dried them, then left the paper towel crumpled beside the faucet. Their father would have told him paper towels cost money. Mara almost said it for him. Wade's voice softened. "Dad left the property to the 3 of us. He did not leave instructions for how to cut it apart. We have to decide that. I know what the will says. Then you know nobody's taking your share. You've already decided which share is mine. We're proposing a division that lets the operation survive. Your operation. The operation that pays the land note. Dad paid off the farm in 1998. There are equipment loans, seed, fertilizer, property taxes, the new grain bin, the one you told him he'd be stupid not to build." Wade's nostrils flared. He had been calm for so long that the tiny movement felt like a shout. Mara remembered their father in his recliner last winter, watching the new bin rise beyond the barn. He had called it Wade's Silver Monument. Wade had called it necessary. They had both smiled, but neither had been joking. "We'll have everything appraised," Wade said. "The bottom acreage counts toward your third. If there's a difference after debts, we work out an equalization. With what money? That depends on the numbers." "So, there is no money. I didn't say that. You said a longer version." Travis turned from the sink. "Nobody has cash sitting around to buy you out, Mara." She looked at him. "I didn't ask anybody to buy me out." "What do you want then?" It was not a challenge. He sounded honestly tired, which somehow made the question crueler. Mara wanted to remain in the house for one night without feeling like a guest. She wanted the narrow upstairs room where she had slept since moving back after their father's first stroke. She wanted Wade to admit he had continued taking money from Earl's farm account, while Mara bought bed pads with her own debit card. She wanted Travis to remember all the mornings he said he would come sit with Dad, and then texted that something had broken down. She wanted their father alive so she could be furious at the correct person. "I don't know yet," she said. Wade nodded as if she had confirmed a weakness in her position. "That's fair. Think about it. How much time do I get? The estate process takes a while. That wasn't my question either." He picked up the folder. "We're not putting you out tonight." Tonight? Mara, for God's sake. When? "We need to inventory the house. Clean it. Decide whether it stays with the farm or gets rented." She laughed again, but no sound came with it. "It stays with the farm. You already wrote that down. That's the proposal." "Are you moving in? My house is 6 miles away, so it'll sit empty." "Maybe." "And I have to leave so it can sit empty correctly?" Travis said. "Nobody said you have to leave." Wade glanced at him. The glance was quick, but Mara caught it. "Okay," she said. "Which one of you wants me here?" Neither answered. The furnace kicked on beneath the floor. Somewhere inside the dishwasher, the detergent pod dropped with a hollow click. Mara pushed back from the table. She expected her legs to shake, but they didn't. She walked to the dishwasher, opened it, and took out their father's mug. A blue thread of detergent ran down one side. "What are you doing?" Wade asked. "Stealing my inheritance." She rinsed the mug under the faucet and dried it with Travis's abandoned paper towel. The stoneware was still warm. She carried it upstairs. Her room looked exactly as she had left it that morning, which felt insulting. Black dress laid across the bed, shoes kicked beneath the chair, phone charger dangling from the wall. On her dresser sat a bottle of pink nail polish she had bought 2 summers ago and never opened. She had once thought moving home would last 6 months. She set the mug beside the nail polish. Below, cabinet doors opened and closed. Wade and Travis spoke too quietly for her to catch words. She imagined the folder returning to the table, their 2 heads bent over the map, the shaded yellow parcel becoming more reasonable every minute she was absent. She changed into sweatpants and one of their father's old work shirts. It smelled faintly of the cedar blocks she had put in his closet. She folded the black dress, then unfolded it, because folding it implied a future use. Her phone buzzed. "Travis. You okay?" She typed, "I'm directly above you." 3 dots appeared, vanished, returned. "I didn't know Wade was doing this today." Mara read the sentence twice. It was crafted to deny only the date. She set the phone face down. Downstairs, voices moved into the hallway. The front door opened. Wade called up that he was leaving, waited half a second, and shut the door. A second engine started several minutes later. Travis had stayed just long enough to look as if he hadn't left with him. Mara sat on the edge of the bed until the house became quiet. Then she went downstairs, removed the floodplain map from Wade's leather folder, and made a copy on the printer beside their father's desk. The next morning, she drove to work wearing yesterday's mascara and stopped at the county road on the way home. She had passed the mud piece hundreds of times without looking at it. From the road, it seemed less like land than the place land gave up. Tall cane crowded the ditch, cottonwood branches knitted together over a sagging gate. Beyond them, everything was gray-green, wet, and impenetrable. A red no-dumping sign leaned sideways beside a mattress. Mara parked on the shoulder and studied her photocopied map. The parcel followed the road for nearly half a mile before narrowing toward the river. What Wade had called frontage was mostly ditch, brush, and water. She tried the gate. It was held shut by 2 loops of rusty wire and a length of baling twine tied in a knot swollen hard by rain. Her father's preferred fastening system, 3 wrong materials combined until they became permanent. She tugged once, then went back to the Honda for the small emergency kit she kept beneath the passenger seat. It contained jumper cables, a flashlight with weak batteries, a tire gauge she did not know how to use, and no pliers. She attacked the twine with nail clippers. A truck slowed behind her. Mara straightened, expecting Wade, but a white utility pickup rolled down its window. The driver was a square-faced man in a fluorescent road vest. "You all right?" he called. "Absolutely." He looked at the nail clippers in her hand. "I'm conducting a land survey. With those, budget cuts." The man nodded as if he had seen worse and continued down the road. After 8 minutes, the twine gave way. Mara pushed the gate open far enough to squeeze through. The lower hinge detached from its post and dropped into the weeds. "Good," she said. "Strong start." The ground inside was softer than it looked. Mud pressed around her nursing shoes on the third step. She considered going back for the rubber boots in the trunk, remembered one, had a crack across the heel, and kept walking. Behind the brush lay an old track, 2 faint ruts with grass between them. She followed it past a pile of tires furred with moss. A maple sapling grew through the center of a metal kitchen chair. Near the ditch, a refrigerator lay on its back with the door removed, holding 6 inches of brown water and an energetic population of frogs. 46.3 acres. Mara tried to picture selling it. The listing description would have to lean hard on privacy. The track ended at a wall of cane. Through gaps in the stalks, she could see taller trees and the silver suggestion of water. The air smelled of wet leaves, river mud, and something sweetly rotten. Mosquitoes found her in under a minute. Her father had brought her down here once. She could not have been more than 9 or 10, but the memory came back through sensation rather than pictures. Vinyl truck seats burning the backs of her legs, a coffee can of rusty bolts between her feet, Earl swearing at a trailer tire. She remembered asking what used to be there. Nothing worth saving, he had said. At the time, she had believed that was a description. Her phone rang. Wade. She watched his name pulse until it stopped. A text followed. "Need that map back." Mara looked toward the road. His leather folder must have remained in the kitchen when he left, which meant he had already returned to the house without telling her. Or perhaps he had sent Travis. She took a picture of the mattress, the fallen gate, and the watery refrigerator. She sent all 3 to the group text with her brothers. "Which one is my equalization?" Travis replied first. "Fridge has potential." Wade did not respond. Mara walked farther, using a dead branch to beat the cane ahead of her. The old track reappeared beyond it and descended slightly. Almost at once, water seeped over the soles of her shoes. She stopped. A collapsed structure stood 30 yards ahead, hidden so completely beneath vines that she had taken its roofline for a low hill. Corrugated metal showed through trumpet creeper. One wall leaned inward. A wide doorway faced the track, its sliding door hanging from a single roller. Mara moved closer. The building was longer than she expected, not a shed for tools then, and not a hunting shack. Along one wall, beneath tangled vines, ran a waist-high wooden platform. Rusted brackets projected over it at intervals. The packed earth floor was littered with fragments of thin, slatted boxes. She picked up one gray board. Faded blue paint clung to its edge. 2 letters remained visible. B and E. Bell, maybe. Or berries. Or somebody's trash. The roof creaked. Mara stepped backward so quickly that mud filled her right shoe. Nothing fell, but she took the warning and returned to the track. By the time she reached the gate, her feet were wet. Her forearms were scratched, and a mosquito had bitten her directly between the eyebrows. She hauled the gate upright, threaded the severed twine through the wire, and tied the best knot she knew. The road service truck had stopped 50 yards away. The man in the fluorescent vest was setting out an orange marker beside a washed shoulder. He raised a hand. "Survey go well? I've confirmed the presence of land. That's a big first day." She leaned against the crooked gate and looked back at the cane. The man followed her gaze. "You buy that piece?" "Inherited it." He winced. "Sorry." Mara could not tell whether he meant her father or the land. She laughed anyway, and for the first time since Wade put the mug in the dishwasher, it sounded like her own laugh. At work that night, she checked real estate listings between rounds: hunting ground, recreational acreage, river access, mature timber. She searched floodplain and got government maps shaded in alarming colors. At 3 in the morning, with the nursing home hall dim and quiet around her, Mara uploaded the photograph of the collapsed building to her phone and enlarged the slatted board. The blue letters sharpened. Bell Orchards. Below them, almost lost in grime, was the outline of a pear. "Bell Orchards," Mara whispered. A call light blinked over room 118. She put her phone away and carried a fresh pitcher of water down the hall. "Mrs.?" Keen wanted the window opened, then closed, then opened 2 inches because the room smelled like someone had microwaved a sock. By the time Mara settled her and returned to the nurse's station, Patrice Howard had taken Mara's phone off the counter. Patrice was 51, tall and capable of expressing entire medical opinions with one raised eyebrow. She enlarged the photograph with 2 fingers. What am I looking at? My future summer home. Does it have a roof? Some of one. Patrice studied the blue pair. Bell Orchards. That your family? I guess. You guess your own last name? It was on the land my brothers want me to take. Patrice handed back the phone. She knew about Earl's funeral, and enough about Wade to dislike him without having met him. Mara had described both brothers during overnight shifts, usually in the affectionate, aggravated way people described relatives they assumed would always remain on their side. Those old conversations now embarrassed her. Want you to take, Patrice repeated. In the same sense, people want you to take the last deviled egg. Deviled eggs are useful. The bottom ground floods. So do basements. People still fight over those. Not this one. Patrice sat and opened the charting screen. Then, why do they want you to have it? Mara looked at the photograph again. That was the question she had been avoiding by concentrating on market values, road frontage, and whether 46 acres could be sold to somebody who enjoyed both hunting and disappointment. Because they don't want it, she said. Patrice began typing. Maybe. When Mara reached the farmhouse after sunrise, Wade's truck was parked beside the garage. Travis's was backed up to the porch, its tailgate lowered. 2 cardboard boxes sat in the bed. She remained in her Honda with the engine running. The sensible explanation was that they were inventorying their father's belongings. The estate required it. Things had to be counted, divided, sold, or thrown out. She knew that. The boxes still looked like a getaway vehicle. Inside, she found Wade in Earl's bedroom, writing on a clipboard, while Travis emptied the top drawer of the dresser. Their father's socks lay in stacks on the bed. What are you doing? Travis turned, holding a pair of brown dress socks. Mourning? That wasn't a difficult question. Clothes, Wade said. Church donation? It's been 1 day. Pickup is Thursday. Then call them next Thursday. Wade lowered the clipboard. You said you didn't want to do this. I said I didn't want to do it yesterday. You work tonight, don't you? Yes. And tomorrow? Yes. So when? Mara hated that he had a practical answer ready. Wade used practicality the way some people used volume. She walked to the bed and picked up a pair of white athletic socks. Their father had complained that the elastic left dents in his ankles. During the last year, his ankles had swollen so badly that Mara cut the cuffs with sewing scissors. This pair had 2 neat slits at the top. Nobody else in the room knew why. Leave the clothes, she said. I'll go through them Friday. Wade looked as if he might argue, then wrote something on his clipboard. Friday. Travis replaced the dress socks. Mara took out her phone and showed them the photograph. What was Bell Orchards? Neither brother answered immediately. Wade returned his attention to the clipboard. Where'd you find that? In the building on the bottom ground. You went inside? Near it. That structure is ready to fall. Thank you for including it in my substantial piece of land. Mara. What was the orchard? Travis sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to crush the socks. Grandma Lenora had fruit trees down there. Pears, mostly. Apples, too, I think. You think? I was little when she died. Mara had been 4. Her memories of Lenora were flashes. A square white kitchen, a green vinyl purse, strong fingers pinching Mara's chin still while wiping jam from it. Why didn't I know about it? Wade shrugged. There's nothing to know. There's a building with the name painted on crates. Was. There was an orchard. The flood took it before you were born. All of it? Near enough. Then why is the packing house still there? Because buildings don't float as well as trees. Travis made a small noise that might have been a laugh. Wade glanced at him, and it died. Mara tucked the phone into her pocket. Did Dad run it after Grandma? No, Wade said. He said it was throwing labor into a hole. Did he clear the trees? Dead trees clear themselves eventually. The answer felt rehearsed, not because Wade was hiding anything, but because he had repeated Earl's judgment until it no longer required thought. Travis rubbed his jaw. There used to be a sign by the road. What happened to it? Dad backed the disc into it. Accidentally? He was Dad, hard to tell. That laugh escaped all 3 of them. It was brief and unwelcome, leaving an ache behind. Wade set the clipboard on the dresser. Look, if you don't want the bottom ground, say so. We'll have to figure out another division. What other division? I don't know yet. Would it include part of the house and barns? No, it can't. Then you do know. Mara, the operation cannot function if every asset gets chopped into thirds. You don't farm. I washed Dad's backside for 3 years. I understand spreading fertilizer. Travis closed his eyes. Wade's face hardened, but Mara saw hurt arrive before anger covered it. For a moment she was ashamed. Then she remembered the map sliding under his arm while Mrs. Pruitt hugged her. "You've got until Friday," she told them. "Leave his room alone." She slept until noon, woke with a headache behind one eye, and called the first rural land agent whose sign she remembered seeing along Highway 62. The agent's name was Dale Kemp. His photograph showed a tanned man leaning against a fence in a white shirt, clean enough to rule out actual fence work. He met Mara at the mud piece 2 days later and did not cross the gate. "Wetlands?" he asked. "Floodplain." Same question, different headache. "I don't know." "Tillable history?" "There was an orchard." "When?" "My grandmother ran it." "How long ago?" "She died 23 years ago." Dale pushed his sunglasses onto his head and examined the wall of cane. "That doesn't help us much. There's a packing building." "Condition?" "Optimistic from a distance." He looked at her, uncertain whether she had made a joke. "Utilities?" "No." "Water?" She pointed toward the river. "Right." Dale slapped a mosquito on his neck. "Recreational buyer, maybe. Duck hunters, somebody wanting mitigation acres. But they'll need access, and right now, I can't see what I'm selling." "How much?" "Without walking it?" "Roughly." He gave a number lower than the used Honda parked beside them. Mara thought she had misheard. "For all of it?" "Flood risk kills financing, cleanup costs. You might get a neighbor to pay more if it connects to them. My brothers are the nearest neighbors. Then start there. They're giving it to me." Dale slowly replaced his sunglasses. "Ah." That single syllable appraised more than the land. "I can list it," he said, "but I'd clear enough to show. Buyers don't like mysteries unless there are antlers involved." Mara thanked him and watched his clean truck leave. She had wanted a price because a price could become rent, a deposit, a more reliable car, perhaps 3 months in which every emergency did not land on the same credit card. Instead, the mud piece was worth less than the care she had provided for free, and apparently more than her brothers believed she deserved. She went to the hardware store and bought pruning loppers, work gloves, insect repellent, and real pliers. At the register, she put the brush saw back after seeing the total. The white utility truck was near the gate when she returned. The square-faced man from the road stood beside the ditch, pulling an orange marker from the soft shoulder. Without the fluorescent vest, he wore oil-stained work pants and a gray shirt with Mercer stitched above the pocket. "More surveying?" he asked. "I've moved into land improvement. Fast promotion." He nodded toward the loppers. "You planning to do 46 acres with those?" 46.3. "And no. I'm hoping the other acres feel threatened and clean themselves." He smiled. It changed his face more than she expected, deepening lines around his eyes. "Gabe Mercer, Mara Bell," I figured. "From the sign?" "From Wade." The smile faded from her side. "You know my brother? I fix things he breaks. That doesn't narrow it down. Tractors mostly. Pumps sometimes." Gabe lifted the marker and started toward his truck, then glanced past the gate. "You find the old packing house?" Mara stopped pulling on her gloves. "You knew it was there? My dad worked harvest down there, long time ago. So there really was an orchard." He looked amused by the question. "A pretty good one. My brothers say the flood wiped it out. Flood did damage. That's not what I asked." Gabe rested the marker against his shoulder. "Your family quit taking care of it. The river just got blamed because it doesn't argue." He seemed to realize he had stepped somewhere private. "Sorry," he said. "Your dad died." "Yes." "I heard. Everybody did. We had enough potatoes to notify 3 counties. That cautious smile returned. "I liked Earl. So did I. Didn't mean he couldn't be hard-headed. He believed flexibility was a bone disease." Gabe looked toward the cane. "You trying to sell? Trying to make it visible enough that someone can insult me accurately?" "I've got a brush blade in the truck." Mara's shoulders tightened before she could stop them. "I'm not asking you to clear it. I didn't say you were. That came out sharper than I intended. Sounded pretty intentional." She waited. Gabe scratched dried mud from the marker with his thumbnail. I was offering the blade, not myself. It fits a gas trimmer. You have one? No. Then my offer has structural problems. To Mara's surprise, he left. She spent 2 hours cutting vines away from the gate and another hour opening 6 yards of the old track. The loppers blistered the base of her thumb through the glove. Every severed honeysuckle branch seemed connected to 3 others, and each one fought like it had signed a lease. When she finally reached the packing house, afternoon light slanted beneath the damaged roof. She stayed outside and cleared vines from the front platform. More blue-painted crate slats appeared. Some bore only the pear outline. Others carried Bell Orchards, Mount Vernon, Indiana. Mara stacked the unbroken ones under the remaining roof. Near the corner of the building, her loppers struck something hard beneath the leaves. She knelt and pulled away damp litter, expecting metal. Pale green shoots rose from the soil in a narrow cluster. Another cluster stood several feet beyond it, then another, all running in a line away from the building. Daffodils, not yet blooming. Mara straightened and followed them with her eyes until the cane swallowed the line. She moved 10 paces to the right and found a second row. The land had been left alone for more than 20 years. The flowers had not forgotten where to come back. Mara touched one waxy leaf with the back of her finger. The soil around it was cold and wet, but the shoot stood upright, clean as a green flame. She had never planted anything in her life except 3 supermarket basil plants, all of which had died on the kitchen windowsill, while their father accused her of buying weak basil. She took pictures of both lines, then forced herself to leave before darkness turned the old track into a good place to break an ankle. The next day, she returned with a tape measure. She told herself Dale would need dimensions for the listing. Buyers might care that the packing house was 62 feet long, 24 feet wide, and only partially attempting to lie down. Buyers might appreciate the loading platform, the scattered crate slats, or the fact that one corner remained dry. The daffodils were 8 feet apart. Mara measured the space between 6 clusters, wrote the numbers on a deposit envelope from her glove compartment, and found the second line matched the first. When she cleared another patch of leaves, she uncovered a strip of reddish clay running beneath the soil. It looked like part of a broken flower pot. She photographed that too. At home, Wade had stacked their father's clothing on the dining room table in labeled piles. Church, work, rags. The word rags had been written on a page from Earl's yellow legal pad and placed over 3 flannel shirts Mara had repaired at the elbows. She moved all 3 to work. Wade moved them back. Friday, she reminded him. It is Friday. I said I'd go through them. You've been gone all morning. I've been going through something else. Travis was wrapping their father's dress shoes in newspaper. He glanced between them. Mara, do you want any of the shirts? All the flannels. Wade looked at the pile. For what? Shirt-related activities. They're worn out. So was Dad. We didn't put him in the rag pile. Travis lowered his head, but not before she saw his mouth twitch. Wade picked up the legal pad label and carried it to the kitchen trash. Fine. Take them. The shirts fit into one grocery bag. Their father had been a large man before the strokes, then diminished by degrees. The newer clothes were smaller, soft cotton things Mara could pull over his stiff left arm. Wade called those donation clothes. Mara let them go because keeping everything felt less like love than panic. They divided Earl's watches, pocket knives, belts, and caps with an awkward courtesy that arrived too late to be comforting. Wade wanted the Red Seed Company cap because it appeared in an old photograph of him and Earl beside their first combine. Travis took the cracked watch their father had worn daily. Though it no longer ran, Mara chose his dented nail clippers. Wade stared at them in her palm. That's what you want? He could actually find these. Their father had owned at least 7 pocket knives and had spent half his life asking where he put one. The clippers lived in the ashtray of his recliner, beside peppermints and hearing aid batteries. When the table was nearly cleared, Wade brought out his leather folder. Mara kept folding a blue flannel shirt. The appraiser can be here next week, he said. After that, we'll have actual numbers. Will he walk the bottom ground? He'll review comparable sales. That means no. It means he knows how to do his job. So did Dale Kemp. Wade's expression changed. You called a land agent? I called 3. She had called 2, but Wade did not deserve numerical precision. You can't list estate property. I asked what it was worth. What did they say? Suddenly you're interested. I've always been interested. It affects the division. Mara buttoned the shirt before folding it. Earl had never buttoned shirts before putting them away. He claimed buttons needed air. "If the bottom parcel is mine," she said, "why do you care who I talk to? Because it isn't yours until we agree." We agreed. You and Travis keep the house, barns, working acreage, machinery, and operation. I get the place with a drowned refrigerator. That isn't the final agreement. Which part are you reconsidering? Wade did not answer. Relief had shown on his face when she said we agreed. It was subtle, a looseness around his eyes, but she saw it. He had feared she would demand the sale of the home place. He had feared she might calculate her care work in something other than affection. Mara set the folded shirt into her bag. "I'll take the bottom ground." Travis stopped wrapping a shoe. Wade's relief disappeared beneath caution. Subject to appraisal and debts. No mystery deductions. "I see everything. You'll see everything. And if you and Travis keep using the farm while this gets settled, you cover the operating costs. Not me." Wade nodded. "That's reasonable." The word sounded like a prize he was awarding her. "I'm not done. I want until the end of the month to move. You said you had somewhere." "No, you assumed I did because I have a job." Travis looked at Wade. "End of the month's fair." Wade's jaw worked once. "All right. And nobody moves my things while I'm at work. We wouldn't. The percolator is already in the shop. It sparked. It has always sparked." Wade closed the folder. "End of the month." Mara carried the grocery bag upstairs. She sat on her bed with Earl's flannel shirts beside her and waited for the satisfaction of having stood up for herself. What came instead was the understanding that she had just agreed to leave home in exchange for land she could not live on. Patrice found her the room above Sud's Spin. The laundromat belonged to Patrice's cousin, Marlene Voss, a compact woman with silver hair shaved close on one side and an expression that suggested most disasters could be corrected with bleach. The upstairs had once held 2 offices. Marlene had converted the larger one into a bedroom, with a shower so narrow Mara could wash either her front or her back, but not both at once. "It hums," Marlene said during the tour. The floor vibrated faintly beneath their shoes. From the dryers, washers. Dryers rattle. You learn the difference. The room had one slanted window overlooking the parking lot, a hot plate, a half refrigerator, and mustard yellow carpet. Rent was low enough that Mara asked what was wrong with it. Marlene pointed downstairs. "People wash comforters at midnight. Some of those comforters have lived hard lives. I work nights. Then they'll annoy you during the day. I'm a flexible sleeper. Nobody is?" Mara paid the deposit before she could lose her nerve. Travis arrived at the farmhouse with his truck on moving day. Mara had not asked him. He backed up to the porch and came inside carrying a roll of stretch wrap. "I thought you might need help." "Did Wade send you?" "No. Does Wade know you're here?" He pulled the plastic wrap loose with his teeth. "Do you want help or a deposition?" She wanted to tell him no. The word was ready, sharp and satisfying. Then she looked at the mattress wedged halfway down the stairs and moved aside. They carried boxes without discussing the land. Travis made jokes about the quantity of Mara's shoes until she pointed out that he owned 4 pairs of identical brown boots. He wrapped the pink nail polish in one of Earl's clean handkerchiefs and placed it carefully in a box marked bathroom. At the laundromat, the mattress barely fit around the landing. Marlene directed them from below. "Turn it clockwise." "We are," Travis grunted. "Your other clockwise. There's one clockwise. Not from where I'm standing." When they finally forced the mattress through the doorway, Travis fell backward onto it. The floor hummed beneath him. "This room is moving," he said. "Some of us are adapting." He lay there, breathing hard. "Wade's not trying to hurt you." Mara set down a box of dishes. "He's naturally gifted? He thinks keeping the farm together is what Dad expected. Dad expected me to stay in that house and take care of him. Funny how death made his expectations selective." Travis sat up. "You could have said no to the land. And then what? We'd have figured something out. You and Wade figured it out before the funeral potatoes cooled." He stared at the mustard carpet. Mara waited for him to deny it. Instead, he said, "We started talking after Dad went into hospice." The words struck with a quiet precision. Mara had been changing sheets, measuring morphine, and sleeping in 40-minute pieces. Her brothers had been deciding where she would go afterward. Travis stood. "I'm sorry." "For what part?" He had no answer ready, which was at least honest. When he left, Mara unpacked Earl's mug and placed it beside the hot plate. It looked too solid for the room. The laundromat entered its spin cycle beneath her. Glasses trembled in the cabinet. Somewhere downstairs, Marlene shouted, "Not that much soap!" at an adult man who shouted back that he had read the bottle. Mara sat on the mattress among unopened boxes until the vibration became ordinary. Her phone rang. Dale Kemp had a buyer interested in the bottom ground. Cash, quick closing, once the estate cleared. No inspection beyond confirming the boundaries. The offer was even lower than his estimate. "Is that a joke?" Mara asked. "It's an opening. It opened underground. Floodplain buyers factor risk. So do floodplain sellers. You planning to counter?" Mara looked at the photograph of the daffodils on her phone. 2 straight green lines disappearing into cane. They were not valuable. They proved nothing. Neither did blue crate slats or a building too unsafe to enter. Still, something had been planted there deliberately, returned each spring, and gone unnoticed because the bells had stopped looking. "Tell him no," she said. "Want me to ask for more?" "No." "What number would change your mind?" Mara did not know. Money still mattered. The deposit had cut her savings in half, and the Honda had begun making a clicking sound whenever she turned left. Keeping land out of spite was the kind of decision her father would have mocked until breakfast. "I'm not listing it yet," she said. After the call, she drove to the floodplain in Earl's blue flannel shirt. At the gate sat a gas trimmer with a brush blade attached. A red fuel can stood beside it. Cardboard had been wired to the handle. The note read, "Offer repaired. Bring it back when you're done. G. Mercer." Below that, in smaller letters, "It pulls hard to the left." Mara looked up and down the empty road, then carried the machine through the gate. It did pull left. It also coughed, smoked, and cut through the first wall of cane in under a minute. By sunset, she had opened the track wide enough to see the packing house from the road. Behind her, freed from shadow, the first daffodil had opened yellow against the mud. The yellow bloom lasted 4 days before a hard rain knocked it sideways. Mara found it bent over the next morning, its face in the mud, and felt personally offended. "You've survived 20 years, she told it. "This is embarrassing." She propped the stem against a forked stick, though she knew flowers did not heal from pep talks. The second line of daffodils had begun blooming too, faint points of yellow visible beyond the cane. They gave her a direction. She worked toward them after night shifts and before evening ones, sometimes in 40-minute stretches. The brush trimmer bruised her hip through Earl's flannel shirt. Honeysuckle whipped her forearms. She learned to keep her mouth shut when cutting cane after swallowing a flying beetle on Tuesday. The old track widened slowly. Every few yards, she uncovered another sign that the bottom ground had once been used rather than endured. A post-set square, a length of wire fastened with porcelain insulators. A shallow ditch lined with clay tile. Most of it was broken or buried. None of it translated into money. Still, each find made Wade's nothing feel less like a fact and more like a decision somebody had repeated. Gabe returned on the 5th afternoon to retrieve an orange road marker he had left in the ditch. Mara stopped the trimmer and pulled off her ear protection. "That's a very convincing reason to be here. It's county property. It's a stick. Government stick." He examined the cleared track, then the trimmer. "You put straight gas in it?" "I used the can you left." "Good. I do know engines require fuel. A lot of people know that. Fewer know there are kinds. I read the label. That puts you ahead of Wade." She wiped sweat from her forehead with her wrist. "You really fix his equipment?" "Try to." "Does he know you're lending me this?" "He doesn't receive a report of my daily movements." Mara looked toward his truck. "You're taking it back? Are you done?" She glanced at the cane extending toward the river. "I'm beginning to suspect no." Gabe crouched beside the clay strip she had exposed. He loosened dirt with 2 fingers and lifted a curved piece. "Drain tile," he said. "I got that far. Hand laid. See the gap? Water seeped into the joints and ran through. Ran where? Depends on the grade." They followed the shallow depression toward the packing house, stepping over cut vines and crate wood. The tile disappeared beneath roots, surfaced near a low place, then vanished again. "Grandma Lenora did this?" Mara asked. "Not with her own hands, probably." "You sound less certain than you did about the orchard. My dad talked about picking pears. He didn't give lectures on drainage. What did he say? That Mrs. Bell could sort bad fruit by the sound it made hitting a table. That she paid on Fridays. That Earl hated working for his mother. The last sentence landed with the firmness of something long obvious to everyone except Mara. Why? Gabe shrugged. Same reason most men hate working for their mothers. She remembers when they ate paste. My dad would never eat paste. Then she remembered something worse. Mara smiled despite herself. He said the river wiped the orchard out. A couple floods hit it hard. Dad said the water left silt halfway up the trunks one year. How high is halfway? Depends on the tree. That is an irritating answer. It's also the accurate one. He walked to the edge of the cleared area and studied the brush. Rows should be farther south, pears on the higher strips, apples closer to the building. How do you know? I remember the shape from the road. Barely. Mara looked at him. How old are you? 33. You were, what, 10? 11 when Lenora died. And your father brought you here? Once or twice. For harvest? To wait in the truck while he got his check. The answer closed a door she had not meant to open. Gabe pressed the broken tile back into place and covered it with loose soil. You can borrow the trimmer another week, he said. I didn't ask. No. You've established a policy. A strong lending culture relies on boundaries. He nodded solemnly. I'll alert the banks. Before leaving, he walked around the packing house and pointed out where the roof had separated from the rear beam. He did not tell Mara to stay out. He only showed her which section would fall first. That restraint made her trust him more than advice would have. On Sunday, Mara traded 2 future days of clearing storm debris from Vernon Pike's fence line for one afternoon with his bush hog. Vernon owned the hayfield across the county road and had greeted her offer by saying, "You're Earl's girl," in the surprised tone of a man identifying a species he thought extinct. I'm Mara. I know. You favor Lenora. Mara had no idea whether she did. In photographs, her grandmother looked broad and unimpressed, with gray hair curled close to her head. Mara was narrow, dark-haired, and frequently impressed against her will. Vernon's tractor opened a strip from the gate to the packing house, then a rough loop around the nearest daffodil line. The bush hog struck hidden metal twice. On the second impact, Vernon shut down and climbed off swearing. They pulled a rusted bed frame from beneath the weeds. Earl dumped this? Vernon asked. Did he own a bed? Fair point. By evening, the floodplain looked wounded but accessible. Chopped cane covered the ground. Exposed mud showed every tractor rut. The packing house no longer appeared to rise naturally from vegetation. It looked smaller, more vulnerable, and more real. Mara stood in the road after Vernon left and took a photograph. She sent it to Patrice, who replied, "Needs curtains." She did not send it to her brothers. Wade saw it anyway. He arrived at Sud Spin the next morning while Mara was sleeping. The pounding on her door entered a dream in which Earl was trapped in the washing machine downstairs. She opened the door in a t-shirt and one sock. Wade took in the room, the hot plate, and Earl's mug beside the sink. You took Dad's cup. We divided his things. I thought you were joking. That was your first mistake. Vernon says you're clearing the bottom. Vernon needs a hobby. What are you doing down there? Clearing it? For sale? Maybe. Wade stepped into the room without being invited. The washers below shifted into spin, and the floor trembled under his boots. You shouldn't put money into that place. I've spent $28 on gas and 1 beetle. I'm serious. So am I. It was a large beetle. He ignored that. Appraisal came back low on the bottom parcel. Lower than expected. Mara leaned against the doorframe. Whose expectations? It means there'll have to be some adjustment, but the debts aren't all calculated. What adjustment? We're working it out. Try working it out before asking me to sign. Nobody asked you to sign anything yet. Then why are you here? Wade looked around again. His gaze caught on the grocery bag holding Earl's flannel shirts. You didn't have to move into a place like this. You agreed I had to move, not here. I forgot to request approval. You know that isn't what I mean. Mara did know. Wade wanted her safely housed enough that he would not have to see the consequence of his arrangement. He would have preferred an apartment with beige walls and a potted plant, somewhere that made her exclusion look adult and orderly. I'm fine, she said. You don't look fine. I was asleep. Vernon said that packing house is unsafe. Vernon also drove a tractor over a bed. Wade rubbed the back of his neck. There's nothing down there worth getting hurt over. Bell Orchards was nothing. It failed. So did Dad's first marriage. He still counted it. Wade's hand dropped. Their mother had left before Mara was old enough to know her well, and died years later in Arizona. Earl rarely spoke of her, and the brothers followed his lead. Mara had not intended to invoke her. The name-shaped absence sat between them. Wade moved toward the door. Storm systems coming in Wednesday. River's already high north of here. I check weather, then get Mercer's equipment out before it floods. So, Wade knew about the trimmer too. After he left, Mara stood at the slanted window and watched him cross the laundromat parking lot. He paused beside her Honda, looking at the mud caked along its doors, then drove away. The rain began Tuesday night. By Wednesday afternoon, the county ditch ran brown and fast. Mara moved the trimmer and fuel can into the packing house, then reconsidered and carried both to her car. She stacked the painted crate slats on the highest part of the loading platform, weighted them with broken tile, and cut the twine from the gate so floodwater would not tear it off completely. Gabe stopped in his utility truck as she came out. "River gauge jumped 4 feet, he said. "How much reaches here?" "All of it, eventually. I just cleared the track. Water doesn't respect scheduling." They watched rain stipple the ditch. "You should go," he said. Mara bristled, then saw he was not ordering. The road was already disappearing beneath a thin brown sheet. She got into the Honda. The river covered the gate that night. From the county bridge, Mara could see only treetops and the upper edge of the packing house roof. 46 acres had become a moving brown surface carrying branches, feed buckets, and once, impossibly, a white patio umbrella turning slowly like a broken flower. She sat in her car in the rain until a deputy asked her to move along. For 3 days she went to work, slept badly, and refused to drive past the bridge. She knew what would be there when the water fell. The track erased, the daffodils buried, the packing house flattened. Wade's nothing restored to its natural condition. On the 4th morning, Gabe called, roads open. She drove out wearing borrowed rubber boots. Mud sucked at every step. The weeds lay flattened, and her orange flags had scattered. Then the straight ridges emerged from the brown, not 2 lines of flowers. Dozens of long, evenly spaced rises stretched through the floodplain, exposed where the water had stripped away loose silt and pressed the cane flat. Dark stumps stood along them. Between the ridges ran shallow channels connected by the broken clay tile. Gabe knelt beside a pale shoot, pushing from one buried crown. "Pear," he said. Mara looked across the old geometry, stunned by how deliberate it was. Wade's truck had stopped on the road behind them. For several seconds, he stared at the rose. Then he backed away and left. Mara watched the empty road. "He knows what this is," she said. Gabe stood and wiped mud on his pants. "I think you do too." "No." She looked at the living chute trembling in the wet air. "But I'm going to." They spent the morning walking the rose. Walking was generous. They slipped, pulled their boots free, climbed over storm-thrown branches, and occasionally stood still while the mud decided whether to release them. Mara tied orange flagging to every stump that showed green growth. Gabe used blue flagging for crowns that looked alive but had not sprouted. By noon, the old orchard wore 23 orange ribbons and 11 blue ones. "How many trees would have been here?" Mara asked. Gabe counted spaces along the nearest ridge, few hundred maybe. She looked at the ribbons again. "That puts a different tone on 23. 23 is more than 0, barely, on a percentage basis." He scraped silt from a stump with the side of his boot. Beneath the blackened outer wood was a strip of damp green. "This part's alive," he said. "Doesn't mean the original tree is. How can it be alive without being the tree? Rootstock. Fruit trees are often grafted. Roots might send up their own growth after the top dies. Which produces something? Good something? Not necessarily." Mara sighed. "Every answer about this land comes with a second answer standing behind it, holding a knife." Gabe grinned. "You asked if it was alive. The living shoots were not trees so much as stubborn evidence. Most rose thin and thorny from the buried crowns. None carried fruit. A few dead trunks were thick enough that Mara could not circle them with both hands, but they crumbled when she pressed the bark. Near the packing house, the flood had undercut the leaning wall. The loading platform sagged another inch, and several painted crate slats had escaped despite the tile she placed over them. Gabe found one lodged in a willow 50 yards away. "I thought I put those high enough. High is relative down here. I'm developing a dislike for relative terms. They stacked the recovered boards inside the driest corner. Gabe inspected the separated roof beam from the doorway. That needs bracing before you work under it. I don't work under that side. You stored the boards under that side. That isn't work. That's poor judgment. He gave her a look. Mara picked up the boards and moved them. On the road, her phone showed 3 missed calls from Wade. She waited until Gabe drove away before returning them. Wade answered with, "Where are you?" "Guess. You need to stop treating the bottom like it's already transferred. You wanted me to take it. It still belongs to the estate until everything's filed. I'm clearing brush, not building condominiums. Vernon put a tractor down there and removed it when he finished. No squatters yet." Wade was silent long enough for her to hear machinery running behind him. "What did you see this morning?" she asked. "Flood damage. You saw the rows, I saw dirt. You recognized them. I knew there used to be rows. That's what orchards have. Then why did you tell me there was nothing down here? Because there isn't." Mara looked over the exposed ridges. In the flat noon light, they seemed so obvious that denying them required effort. There are living pear roots, wild suckers. Gabe says some could be original. Mercer fixes hydraulic pumps. That doesn't make him an orchard man. "Were you?" Wade exhaled. "Grandma made us pick up drops some summers. It smelled like rotten fruit and yellow jackets. Dad hated the place. Why? Because she treated him like hired help on land he was supposed to inherit. There it was again. Inheritance used as a debt. The living owed the dead. Did the orchard make money? Not enough. How much is enough? You don't have any idea what it costs to bring neglected ground back. I'm learning what you think it's worth. This isn't about what I think. It has been from the beginning." A piece of silt fell from Mara's boot and hit the road with a wet slap. Wade lowered his voice. "The appraiser didn't count any orchard value because there is no producing orchard. Don't create some story in your head where you got cheated out of one thing and handed a gold mine instead. You'll get hurt twice." Mara wanted to reject the warning because it came from him. The trouble was, she believed it. "I have to go," she said. "We need to meet about the appraisal when Travis is there. He will be. And I get copies before the meeting." Another pause. "Fine." She ended the call and stood beside the crooked gate while river water glinted through the trees. Wade's cruelty had always been most effective when it carried something true. She could not afford an orchard. She did not even know whether she had one. Gabe had written BEA Coal and a phone number on the back of a road department receipt. Mara called from the laundromat that afternoon. A woman answered on the 7th ring. "Coles. Is this Beatrice Cole? Depends who wants her. My name is Mara Bell." The line went quiet. "Earl's daughter?" the woman asked. "Yes." "Which one?" "The only one. I know he had only one. I mean, which wife?" Mara sat straighter on the mattress. "Diane." Mara waited for an explanation. None arrived. "I've been clearing the old bottom parcel," she said. "The Bell Orchard land. I know where the orchard was. The flood exposed some of the rows. Floods expose all kinds of things, usually tires. There are living shoots. Then don't cut them. I haven't." "Good. I was told you worked there." "By who?" "Gabe Mercer, Tommy Mercer's boy." "Yes." "He always did talk too much." Mara smiled despite herself. "Gabe or his father?" "Yes." The line crackled. "I'd like to ask you about the orchard," Mara said. "You already have, in person." "No." The answer came without anger. Mara looked at the yellow carpet. "Can I ask why?" "Because your grandmother has been dead 23 years. Your father let the orchard choke for nearly as long, and now a bell calls after a flood wanting history served up clean. It wasn't clean when we lived it. I'm not asking you to make it clean." "What are you asking?" Mara opened her mouth, then closed it. She had been hoping Beatrice would tell her the trees mattered. That Lenora's orchard had been beloved, the varieties rare, the rows recoverable. She wanted somebody older to place a warm hand over the injury and call it legacy. "I don't know enough to ask yet," she admitted. Beatrice made a small sound. "That's the first sensible thing you've said." The line disconnected. Mara stared at the phone. An address appeared by text 5 minutes later, followed by, "Bring boots, buy something if you come. I am not a museum." Cole's farm stand occupied a wide porch on a white farmhouse east of town. Hand-painted signs advertised eggs, sorghum, pear preserves, and firewood. Mara arrived after her next shift and found Beatrice behind a folding table, labeling jars with a black marker. She was not broad like Lenora. She was thin, brown-skinned, and straight-backed, with white hair braided close to her scalp. Her glasses hung from a red cord against a denim shirt. Mara selected a jar of pear preserves. $6, Beatrice said. That all? You want me to charge you more? I'm trying not to treat you like a museum. Then stop hovering over the exhibits. Mara paid. Beatrice continued writing labels. Show me. Mara opened the photographs on her phone. Ridges, stumps, clay tile, daffodils. The green shoot Gabe called pear. Beatrice flipped through them without changing expression. That tile's clogged, she said. I figured. You uncover it with a shovel? The flood did. Then the flood is ahead of you. Seems to be. Beatrice enlarged a photograph of the packing house. Her finger stopped over the leaning wall. That platform held sorting tables, she said. Lenora stood at the north end. I stood opposite. Fruit came in field crates, went out in bushel boxes. Bruised ones went for butter. Wade says it didn't make money. Wade was born counting other people's pockets. Did it? Some years. Beatrice set the phone down. Your grandmother paid wages before she paid herself. That sounds noble until you're the one lending her grocery money. She could be proud, mean, generous, and wrong before breakfast. Mara thought of Earl saying his mother threw labor into a hole. My father blamed the flood. Earl blamed anything that couldn't answer back. The sentence sounded like Gabe's because it had probably come from the same source. People who knew the family from outside its own telling. What actually happened? Mara asked. Lenora died. Your father planted corn on the driest section, got 2 bad seasons, then stopped opening the drains. Water sat, roots rotted, vines came, flood did the rest. Why didn't he sell? Nobody offered enough to flatter him. Beatrice held out her hand. Paper. For what? You want to know what's alive? Map what you found. Rows, crowns, water channels. Don't trust those flags after another rise. Mara pulled the folded deposit envelope from her pocket. On the back was her crude sketch of the first 2 daffodil lines. Beatrice stared at it. This a map, or did a chicken die holding a pen? I wasn't expecting an audience. Use graph paper. She took a blank farm stand price sheet and drew a rectangle. Her marker moved quickly, laying down the packing house, loading platform, access track, and 3 drainage channels from memory. You remember all that? I worked there 16 years. Mara watched the orchard appear beneath Beatrice's hand. Will you come look at it? No, you just drew half of it. That's why I don't need a mosquito tour. Mara bought a second jar she could not afford and went home with instructions to clear around the living crowns by hand, mark every tile outlet she found, and bring a real map. For 6 days she worked. She slept in Earl's shirts because the laundromat room was cold after midnight, then wore them to the floodplain until they smelled of fuel and mud. She opened no more than 20 feet of drain before roots stopped her. She found 3 additional rows, 2 broken outlets, and what Beatrice identified from a photograph as quince rootstock. On the 7th morning, a faded green pickup waited at the gate. Beatrice stood beside it in rubber boots, holding Mara's new graph paper map. You put the 3rd channel in the wrong place, she said. Mara looked at the empty road behind her. Good morning, and you missed a row. I cleared what I could, then show me what you couldn't. They walked to the nearest living crown. Beatrice knelt with more ease than Mara expected, and cut a thin shaving from the shoot with a folding knife. Rootstock, she said. Tough. Fruit's likely useless. Mara's hope sank visibly enough that Beatrice noticed. Don't pout at a root for surviving wrong. I'm not pouting. You have Earl's whole mouth when you pout. Beatrice moved to the blackened trunk beside it and scraped higher. A narrow branch, gray and nearly hidden among thorny suckers, showed green beneath the bark. This, she said, touching it gently, might still be Lenora's pear. Mara crouched beside her. Can it be saved? Maybe. How? Beatrice looked across the rows, the blocked channels, the broken packing house, and the acres of cane waiting beyond them. First, she said, you quit asking the tree to prove it's worth your work. She folded her knife. Then you give the water somewhere else to go. Beatrice put Mara at the lower end of the 1st channel with a shovel. Not there, she said. Mara moved 6 inches left. Not there either. You could point. I am pointing. You're holding a pear switch. Beatrice used the switch to indicate a shallow depression beneath the flattened weeds. Water followed this line. You start digging where you think it ought to go, you'll cut a ditch too deep and empty the whole ridge. Empty it where? Back into the river too fast. Then the next rise comes through harder. Mara rested both hands on the shovel. I thought we were giving the water somewhere else to go. We are. Elsewhere is not the same as anywhere. Beatrice's instruction had the structure of a riddle and the tone of an insult. Mara pushed the shovel into the place indicated. Beneath 4 inches of dark silt, she struck clay tile. They worked upstream, though work remained generous where Beatrice was concerned. She walked the channel and pressed her boot into low places. Mara dug. Beatrice cut fibrous roots with her folding knife. Mara dug. Beatrice told a 15-minute story about Lenora throwing a crate of bruised Bartletts at a salesman who offered half price, while Mara continued to dig. Did she hit him? Mara asked. No. Lenora threw like a woman who'd been told not to throw. Then why tell the story? Because the crate broke, and we had to make pear butter until 2 in the morning. Mara lifted another load of muck. I'm starting to understand why Dad hated harvest. He hated being told what to do. Runs in the family. Beatrice glanced at her. You noticing that in yourself yet? No. That's usually how it starts. The clay tiles had been laid end to end without sealed joints. Some were crushed, but long sections remained intact beneath the roots. Where one had collapsed, mud packed the hollow solid. Mara cleared it by hand, reaching into the cold opening until silt filled her glove. A thin brown stream seeped through. Is that good? She asked. Beatrice crouched beside it. Wait. The trickle strengthened. Water that had stood in a shallow pool between 2 rows began moving toward the open tile. It carried a skin of pollen, tiny leaves, and 1 drowned beetle. Mara watched the level fall the width of her fingernail. That's it? You expected trumpets? I expected more water. You've opened 12 feet. The orchard has been neglected 23 years. It doesn't owe you spectacle. By afternoon, the stream ran clear enough to show the reddish tile beneath it. The soil around the nearest living crown remained damp, but no longer submerged. Beatrice sat on the loading platform and drank coffee from a metal thermos. Mara joined her with mud to both elbows. Dad knew how this worked, Mara said. He knew. Then why let it clog? Beatrice unscrewed the thermos lid. You keep asking why like there's one answer. I'd settle for a useful one. Lenora left him the farm. He wanted corn and beans. Orchard needed crews, pruning, sorting, customers. It needed people disagreeing with him every day. Row crops let him sit alone in a cab. That sounds useful. It's incomplete. What's missing? Grief, pride, debt, your mother leaving? Take your pick. Mara rubbed mud from the creases in her palm. Did you know my mother? Some. Everybody knows some. Diane packed fruit 2 seasons. She was quick, sang badly. Mara waited. Beatrice drank her coffee. That's all? That's what I feel like giving you. Mara wanted to push. The ache around her mother had never found a clean shape. Diane Bell existed in 3 photographs, 1 birthday card, and Earl's refusal to criticize a dead woman in front of her daughter. She had left when Mara was young, died in Arizona years later, and somehow remained capable of altering the air in any room where her name appeared. But the orchard was not a machine that dispensed family explanations when repaired. Beatrice smiled into the thermos lid. Upstream, Gabe arrived near dusk, carrying 2 coffees and a long steel bar. Beatrice accepted 1 coffee without asking who it was for. That was Mara's, he said. She has younger kidneys. Mara leaned on her shovel. I'm standing right here, which proves my point. Gabe inspected the cleared tile, then looked at Mara's mud-blackened hands. You know gloves are supposed to remain between you and the dirt. The tile ate one. He handed her the remaining coffee. Beatrice tapped the steel bar with her pear switch. You planning to stab around my drains? I was planning to probe for the outlet. You know where it is? Approximately. Then you're planning to stab approximately. Gabe looked at Mara. She was nicer to my dad. No, I wasn't, Beatrice said. They found the outlet near a stand of willows, buried under a mat of roots and plastic feed sacks. Gabe probed while Beatrice objected to his technique. Mara dug around the metal bar each time it struck something solid. After 40 minutes, they exposed the broken mouth of a wider clay pipe. Water gurgled once and released in a cloudy rush. Mara jumped back. Gabe did not move quickly enough, and muddy water filled one boot. Beatrice laughed so hard she had to hold Mara's shoulder. Gabe stood with one leg lifted, water draining from the top of his boot. "Glad this brought you joy." "I'm old," Beatrice said. "My pleasures are specific." The release slowed to a steady flow through the grass. Behind them, water began drawing from the channels between three orchard ridges. It was a small change. Nobody driving the road would have noticed. No fruit appeared, and no dead tree restored itself. But the ground had begun functioning again. Mara felt it beneath her boots. At the appraisal meeting, Wade had arranged 3 copies of every page on the kitchen table. He had also made coffee in a new black machine, with buttons along one side. Earl's old percolator remained in Travis's shop. The brown mug remained at Sud's spin. Mara took the chair with the sighing vinyl cushion. Travis sat beside her, peppermint gum working in one cheek. The bottom parcel's value appeared in a box on page 7. Mara read it, then turned to the home acreage, barns, grain storage, machinery, and outstanding loans. The figures rose and fell so dramatically that they stopped feeling like money. "The bottom's less than 10% of the appraised real property," she said. "It's also free of operating debt," Wade replied. "Land doesn't borrow money by itself. The operation did. Who signed? Dad and me, depending on the note." "Then why does your note reduce my share?" "Because the grain bin and equipment increased the estate's value. Did they increase it as much as the debt? That's what we're sorting out." Mara turned another page. "The north field is paid off. It secures the operating line. So I'm supposed to count the debt when you divide the value, but after division you keep the thing the debt bought, and responsibility for paying it, while you farm the land Dad already owned." Wade's fingers flattened against his copy. Travis stopped chewing. Mara had spent 3 nights looking up terms she did not understand and circling numbers until the pages resembled Beatrice's opinion of her first orchard map. She still did not know what a fair division looked like. She knew only that Wade's version required every uncertainty to lean in his direction. "I said I'd take the bottom ground," she told him. "I didn't say I'd pretend it equals everything else." "We know it doesn't," Travis said. Wade looked at him. Travis kept his eyes on the paper. "It's right there." For the first time since the funeral, he had contradicted Wade before Mara dragged the words from him. It was not much. She felt it anyway. Wade sat back. "Then we discuss an equalization payment once the debts are verified." "Paid how?" Mara asked. "Over time. The farm cannot produce a lump sum. How much time?" "We haven't set it. Interest?" His expression told her the idea had not occurred to him. She closed her copy. "I'm not signing a promise you two get to define later. Nobody's asking you to. You keep saying that while putting papers in front of me. This is information." "No, this is rehearsal." Wade stood and carried his coffee to the sink. Outside the window, the new grain bin reflected a white patch of afternoon sun. "Dad wanted the farm kept together," he said. Mara looked at the pale rectangle on the carpet where Earl's recliner had been. The rubber walker tip was gone now. "Dad also wanted me to give up my job and stay home full time," she said. "You told me he was being unreasonable. That was different. Because it cost me instead of you?" Wade's shoulders tightened. Travis removed his gum and folded it into the appraisal's blank back page. "We can make payments out of the operation." Wade turned. "You and I need to discuss that." "We are. We need to discuss it separately." "No," Mara said. "You don't." The brothers looked at each other. A conversation passed between them that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with the life they expected to continue after she left. Travis looked away first. Wade returned to the table. "Take the appraisal. We'll get final debt balances. Then we meet again." Mara gathered her copy. "The brush clearing and any improvements I make don't get added to the parcel value. Why would they? Because you've developed a sudden interest in it. I have an interest in settling the estate, and I have an interest in not paying you for my own shovel work." Wade's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Fine." On the porch, Travis followed her out. "You didn't tell me the ruse came back," he said. "I put pictures in the group text of flowers, not the rose." Wade saw them. He didn't say. Mara looked through the screen door. Wade remained at the table, aligning the edges of the appraisal copies. "Come look," she said. Travis shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. "Now? Are you busy? I've got spraying." There will always be something coming up. He recognized his brother's words. Color climbed his neck. Tomorrow, he said. Mara expected him not to come. At 8 the next morning, his truck stopped beside the crooked gate. He walked the cleared channel without speaking, following the brown water to the outlet. At the first living pear crown, he crouched and touched one of the orange ribbons. I remember these, he said. The trees, the rows. I thought they were bigger. You were smaller. He looked toward the packing house. Grandma used to ring a handbell at lunch. Dad would get mad if we ran ahead of him. Mara stood beside him. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot. No, you didn't. Travis pulled a thorn from his sleeve. Maybe I didn't think it mattered. To who? He winced. Mara regretted the question only because it sounded like an old one. Travis walked farther down the row. He stopped where water had scoured soil from a cluster of roots. A green shoot there leaned beneath a mat of flood-deposited grass. He freed it carefully. What are you going to do with all this? He asked. I don't know yet. That's fair. She looked at him. He seemed surprised when she laughed. They spent the rest of the morning opening the second channel. Travis worked too fast and broke one tile, then swore and tried to hide the pieces behind his boot. Mara handed him the shovel. You break it, she said. You dig. For once he did. Travis returned the next Saturday with a new length of clay pipe in his truck. It was the wrong diameter. He held it beside the broken tile, stared at the half-inch difference and said, Nobody makes normal sizes anymore. The tile is older than you. Still. Beatrice, seated on an overturned crate, bit into a biscuit and watched him struggle. You gonna tell him? Mara asked. Not until I finish eating. Tell me what? Travis said. That pipe won't carry water if you shove it against the old one like two people refusing to kiss. Travis looked at Mara. Where did you find her? She found me. Your family always says that when a woman arrives with opinions, Beatrice said. She eventually showed him how to bed the mismatched section in packed gravel and bridge the gap with a piece of wider tile cut lengthwise. Travis listened without arguing, which earned him a second biscuit. Wade came near noon. His truck stopped on the road, but this time he got out. He wore work boots too clean for the floodplain and carried the appraisal folder beneath one arm. Travis was knee-deep in the channel. Wade surveyed the shovel, the new pipe, and Beatrice's green pickup. Thought you were spraying, finished the east field? You said that would take all day. I was wrong. Wade looked at Mara as if she had altered the weather. Beatrice stood, brushed biscuit crumbs from her shirt, and walked to the packing house without greeting him. Wade watched her go. She still hates Dad? She's flexible. She might hate all of us. I asked Travis. Travis climbed out of the channel. Mud covered his jeans to the knees. I don't know who B hates. You didn't tell me you were coming down here. Didn't know I needed to. Mara felt the small shift between them. Wade did too. His face remained calm, but he tucked the appraisal folder tighter against his side. I brought revised numbers, he said. Leave my copy in the packing house, Mara told him. You keep papers in there? No, that's why I said leave them. He looked toward the leaning building. Gabe had braced the worst roof beam with 2 salvaged timbers, but the rear wall still bowed. The place did not yet inspire filing. Wade handed her the folder instead. We removed the fertilizer balance that belongs to this year's crop. Travis agreed it should stay with the operation. Mara glanced at Travis. He picked mud from the shovel edge. That changes the equalization, Wade continued. We can make fixed annual payments over 10 years. There's interest. The last sentence sounded as if it had cost him personally. How much? She asked. Wade showed her. It was not enough to replace what she would have received from selling a clean third of the farm. It was more than the insulting vagueness of their first offer. The annual payment would cover most of her rent at Sud's Spin, assuming the washers did not shake the building into Kentucky. You both agree? Mara asked. Travis nodded. Wade said, It keeps the operation intact. And the house. Yes. She looked past him toward the road, then toward the rows. Water moved through the open channel in a narrow brown line. We each get copies of the final debts, she said. No new expense gets added because you forgot it. Agreed. The bottom parcel transfers outright. You don't keep access rights because you might want to dump something. We don't need access, then it's easy to agree. Wade's mouth tightened. Agreed. And I keep what I restore. It doesn't become Bell Farm property because Grandma planted it. It already has the Bell name on it, so do I. That hasn't confused you before. Travis turned away, coughing suspiciously into one hand. Wade's gaze settled on the orange flags fluttering along the rows. "You're putting a lot into dead trees. Then you should feel good about the deal." For a moment, Mara thought he might finally say what bothered him. Instead, he nodded at Travis. "We need to go." "I drove myself," Travis said. Wade looked at his truck as if it had betrayed him too. "Fine." He left alone. Beatrice emerged from the packing house after his engine faded. He walks like Earl when Earl knew he was losing an argument. "He brought a better offer," Mara said. "That why he came carrying paper into mud. I think he wanted Travis to leave with him." Beatrice made a non-committal sound and returned to the living pair crown. The agreement took 2 more meetings, 4 revised pages, and 1 argument about whether an old flatbed trailer counted as farm equipment or abandoned sculpture. Mara accepted the bottom parcel and annual payments that would help without rescuing her. Wade and Travis kept the house, barns, grain storage, machinery, and high fields. When Mara finally signed, they sat at the same kitchen table where Wade had first placed the map beneath his arm. No one celebrated. Travis gave her a blue pen because hers quit halfway through her name. Wade checked each page. Mara watched her brother's signatures appear beside hers and felt the family change shape in ink. Afterward, Wade made coffee. He placed 3 foam cups on the table. For one foolish second, Mara expected him to hand her Earl's brown mug, forgetting it lived beside her hot plate now. "What'll you do with the land?" he asked. "Open the drains. I mean, eventually, so do I." He looked disappointed, as though he had wanted a grand plan he could disprove. The deed arrived in a plain envelope the following week. Mara opened it upstairs while the washers entered spin. The paper trembled in her hands, not from emotion, but from a badly balanced machine below. Marlene shouted at someone to redistribute their towels. Mara laughed until she cried, then folded the deed into the appraisal folder and put it beneath her mattress because she did not own a desk. The orchard turned green by degrees. Weeds returned first. Then the surviving rootstock thickened, thorny, and eager. Beatrice taught Mara to remove competing shoots without cutting every sign of life in a burst of enthusiasm. They selected 6 strong roots for grafting and took scion wood from 3 old branches that still showed healthy tissue. Mara had imagined grafting as gentle work. Beatrice arrived with a knife sharp enough to frighten a surgeon. "Cut has to be clean," she said. "Tree won't heal around your feelings." She sliced the rootstock, fitted the slanted scion into it, and wrapped the union tight. That little stick becomes a pear tree. If you don't drown it, dry it, knock it loose, unwrap it early, wrap it too tight, let ants under the tape, or stare at it every 4 minutes. Mara stared at it. Beatrice slapped her hand away. The grafts cost very little in materials and consumed astonishing amounts of attention. Mara checked moisture, cleared weeds, replaced flags, and built wire guards after finding one tender shoot bitten clean through. She bought a pruning saw, grafting tape, fuel, fence stakes, and rubber boots that did not leak. The annual payment from her brothers had not started. Her checking account thinned in $20 and $30 cuts. At work, she caught herself charting a resident's blood pressure beneath a list of tile outlets she had written on her wrist. Patrice read it upside down. 118/74 has excellent drainage. I'm tired. You look composted. I feel composted. Day off tomorrow? Orchard. Patrice folded her arms. Land doesn't get bed sores. Sleep. Mara slept until noon, then drove out feeling guilty about both the hours lost and the relief of losing them. Gabe was beneath the packing house roof when she arrived, tightening a temporary brace. She stopped outside. "What are you doing?" "Preventing gravity." "I didn't ask you to work on this." "No." "Did Beatrice?" "No." "Then why are you?" He climbed down the ladder. "Because that beam shifted after the flood, and you keep standing beneath it. I moved the boards. You moved them 6 feet. Mara looked at the new brace. How much did it cost? The timber came from a barn demolition. Bolts were $12. She reached for her wallet. Gabe put a hand over the back pocket of his jeans. "Absolutely not. You are not reaching into my pants for $12. I was reaching for my wallet. That's less interesting." She laughed before she could remain annoyed. He stepped off the ladder. Sawdust clung to his hair. They stood too close in the shade, the air smelling of old wood and cut weeds. "I don't want people deciding what I need," Mara said. "I know. You did it anyway. I braced one beam. It's the principal. The principal was trying to crush you. She folded her arms. Gabe sighed. All right, I should have asked. Yes. Can I leave the brace? I'll consider it. He waited. You can leave it, thank you. I'll pay for the bolts. Buy supper. That costs more than $12. Depends where we go. They ate sandwiches from a gas station on the loading platform because Mara refused to leave the grafts during an approaching thunderstorm. Gabe claimed the fried bologna was locally significant. Mara said local shame was still shame. Rain drummed lightly on the patched metal roof. The brace held. Gabe told her his father, Tommy, had spent harvest money before he reached home and then worked winter nights repairing river pumps to make it back. Mara told him Earl once kept a jar labeled "Swear Money" in the kitchen and fined everyone a quarter, though he owed the jar $11 by noon the first day. Did he pay? Gabe asked. He declared himself tax-exempt. The rain strengthened. Gabe's shoulder rested against hers, not by accident and not enough to require discussion. When he kissed her, it was brief and careful. Mara looked down at the sandwich in her lap. You taste like fried bologna, so do you. That does reduce my leverage. He kissed her again. The old Kiefer pear bloomed late. On one surviving branch Beatrice had nearly pruned away. Only 5 blossoms set fruit. 2 dropped in June. 1 disappeared with teeth marks beneath the tree. Mara wrapped the remaining 2 in mesh bags and checked them with more concern than dignity. By August, 3 other surviving trees bore scarred, russeted pears high among the vines. Beatrice declared them cooking fruit. You can eat them raw, she said, biting into one, if you dislike your jaw. Mara brought a box to Navarro's bakery in town. Celia Navarro cut one into thin slices, cooked them with brown sugar and ginger, and spooned the mixture onto a scrap of biscuit dough. The filling was fragrant, tart, and deep. How many can you bring me? Celia asked. Mara thought of the trees, the reachable branches, the fruit already claimed by birds. Maybe 8 bushels, maybe 4. I'll take whatever sound. For how much? Celia named a price. It would not cover the fencing. It would cover grafting supplies, fuel, and Beatrice's preserves. Mara kept buying out of guilt and appetite. Mara carried the first 6 boxes into the bakery on a Tuesday morning. Celia handed her an envelope with a check inside. The amount was small enough to disappear in one trip to the hardware store. Mara held it anyway. It was the first money the orchard had earned in more than 20 years. Mara spent the check on wire guards, 2 rolls of grafting tape, and a red-handled pruning saw. Beatrice approved after criticizing the price, the tooth pattern, and the optimism of its packaging. With what remained, she bought gas. Celia turned the pears into hand pies and sold out before lunch. The bakery posted a photograph online. Burnished pastry split open around dark gold fruit. Bell Orchard Pier written on the chalkboard behind it. Mara saw the picture during her break at work. It says orchard, she told Patrice. Patrice peered over her shoulder. You're upset somebody advertised the thing you grew? I grew 6 boxes. Did the other boxes come from a pear factory? 6 boxes isn't an orchard. Looks like an orchard to Facebook. Beatrice agreed with Mara, though less gently. 6 boxes is a Tuesday, she said. Don't start printing labels. I wasn't going to. You look label-minded. They were sorting the remaining pears on the packing house platform. Gabe had repaired enough of the roof to keep one bay dry, and Mara had rebuilt a table from scavenged boards. It slanted toward the river. Beatrice said that saved reaching. Most of the fruit went into the bruise pile. Beatrice cut away damaged flesh and cooked it in an enamel pot over a propane burner. The smell spread through the packing house, warm and spicy beneath the older smells of mud and lumber. Cars began slowing on the road. Some drivers waved. 2 stopped to ask whether Mara was selling fruit. One woman remembered coming to Bell Orchards decades ago and described Lenora as a character, which Beatrice translated after she left. She means, your grandmother scared her. Did Grandma scare everybody? No. Some people had sense before meeting her. Wade arrived while Mara was tying empty bakery boxes into a bundle. He looked at the sorting table, the propane burner, and the blue Bell Orchard slats Mara had fastened along the platform wall. His attention lingered on the hand-lettered price card Beatrice had made for jars of pear butter. You running a store? He asked. We've sold $11, Mara said. Try not to alert the newspapers. You need permits for food sales. Bay's selling under her farm stand. Beatrice stirred the pot without turning. And I've had my kitchen inspected longer than you've been borrowing money. Wade looked at Mara. Can we talk? Nothing here has ears we don't trust. Beatrice lifted the spoon. I don't trust him. Mara followed Wade to the gate. He had parked with 2 tires on the road, as though the floodplain might close around his truck if he committed fully. His face looked leaner than it had at the funeral. The grain market had dropped, and Travis had mentioned trouble with a combine loan before changing the subject. Wade rested his forearms on the gate. I can buy this piece from you. Mara waited for the joke to reveal itself. At appraised value, he continued. Plus what you've put into cleanup. You said there was nothing worth putting money into. I'm trying to give you an out. From $11, from pouring your life into ground that floods. She looked toward the rows. Summer growth softened the old ridges, but their pattern remained visible. Orange and blue ribbons moved in the warm wind. Why now? You've proved your point. What point? That you can clear brush. Fine. You did it. Mara laughed without humor. You think this is about making you admit I own loppers? I think you got hurt, and now every hour you spend down here makes the hurt feel useful. The accuracy of it made her angry enough to go still. Wade saw that he had reached something and mistook it for victory. You could take the money, he said, find a better apartment, go back and finish your degree. I'm not a project you can relocate somewhere tidier. I didn't say that. You came to buy the place after people started stopping at the road. I came because the estate's settled and I can make a clean offer. Clean for who? He straightened. I'm trying to help you. You already helped me. You gave me the land you didn't want. I didn't give it to you. It was part of the division. Good. Then stop acting like it's still yours to correct. Wade's jaw set. Offer stands. Mara opened the gate. It can stand by the mattress. He left without going back to the packing house. Beatrice did not ask what he wanted. She handed Mara the spoon and made her stir until the pear butter stopped catching at the bottom. The hedgerow vanished 2 weeks later. It ran along the lower edge of Wade and Travis's east field, above the county road and opposite the orchard. Osage orange, elderberry, and volunteer cedar had made a crooked strip too wide for modern equipment and too stubborn for convenience. Mara remembered Earl cursing it while refusing to remove it, because Lenora had planted some of the Osage posts herself. Wade hired an excavator. By noon, roots lay piled like bones beside the road. The field looked startlingly large without the hedge. Travis drove the tractor that pulled the last cedar free. Mara crossed from the orchard and stood near his front tire until he shut down. What are you doing? Travis climbed from the cab. Opening the lower strip. I can see that. We need the acreage. That hedge catches runoff. It catches junk. Wade's putting in a grass waterway. Where? Travis pointed toward a shallow swale running downhill. It ended almost directly across from the orchard gate. You're sending it to the road ditch. It already drains there. Through roots and brush. Not bare dirt. The field's getting seeded. When? This week. Clouds had gathered in the west, thick and blue beneath the sun. Mara looked at the uprooted trees. Rain's coming tonight. Half-inch, maybe. You know that because the weather now signs agreements with you? Travis kicked dirt from his boot. Wade already paid the excavator. So that makes the water behave? Mara, we're trying to keep the operation going. Those annual payments don't grow in the office. There it was. Her share turned into the reason they needed more of theirs. You agreed to those payments because you kept the farm. I know. Do you? He looked toward the orchard. We're not trying to damage your ground. You just removed what stood between it and yours. Travis's face closed in the familiar way. Talk to Wade. I'm talking to you. He made the call. And you pulled the tree. Thunder sounded far enough away for either of them to pretend it had not. The storm dropped nearly 3 inches. Water came off the open field in a broad red sheet, crossed the road through 2 culverts, and poured into Mara's first channel, carrying topsoil, corn leaves, and torn roots. The restored drains moved it as designed until debris clogged the lower outlet. Then water backed between the rows. Mara arrived at dawn. Silt covered 3 wire guards. 1 graft had snapped. 2 others lay buried to their unions. Water pressed against the packing house rear wall, which had shifted farther inward and shed a sheet of corrugated metal during the night. Beatrice came with shovels. Gabe brought a pump and a length of hose. They cleared the outlet first, dragging branches and feed sacks from the water. When the blockage released, the channel dropped so suddenly Mara stumbled into it. She uncovered the grafts by hand. One had bent but remained green. The snapped one hung by bark. Beatrice cut it clean without ceremony. "Can we redo it?" Mara asked. "Next season." Mara stared at the severed stick in Beatrice's hand. "It isn't punishment," Beatrice said. "It's a tree. That's supposed to help? No, it's supposed to be true." Gabe pumped water away from the packing house while Mara shoveled wet silt from beneath the remaining brace. He stayed until dark, then returned the next morning with a survey stake and a coil of string. "We need to build up the access," he said. "If the road were higher, trucks could get equipment closer without rutting the channels." "How?" "Geotextile and crushed stone. Crown it toward the ditch." "How much stone?" "2 loads to start." Mara stopped shoveling. "How much money? I can get a contractor rate." That wasn't my question. Gabe named an amount larger than her pear check, her remaining savings, and the next 2 months of groceries combined. "No. It'll keep you from rebuilding the track after every heavy rain." "No. I can cover part of it." "No." He planted the survey stake. "Mara, you can't keep hauling everything in by hand. I can't spend money I don't have. You'll spend more doing it twice. Then I'll do it twice." Gabe's mouth tightened. Sometimes saving money costs too much. Easy to say while spending mine. The next afternoon, a dump truck stopped outside the gate. Mara was clearing silt from the platform. She saw the driver climb out holding a delivery ticket and knew before he spoke. "Mercer said 2 loads, but he wanted me to check placement on the first." Mara looked at the truck bed full of pale, crushed stone. "Take it back." The driver shifted his weight. "There's a restocking and haul fee. Take it back." Gabe arrived before the truck had turned around. He climbed out of his utility truck and watched the load leave. "What happened?" "You ordered gravel. I arranged it. In my name. I put down half. I said no. I thought if you thought the problem was I didn't understand. That isn't what I meant. It's exactly what you meant." Gabe glanced toward the damaged packing house. "That wall won't survive another season if we can't get materials in." "Then it doesn't." "You don't mean that?" "You don't get to decide what I mean, what I can afford, or what I owe because you paid half of something I refused." His face changed. "I was trying to keep you from losing work. So was Wade when he offered to buy the land. That's not fair." "No, it isn't." The comparison hurt him. Mara saw it and did not take it back. She paid the driver's fee out of the money reserved for her electric bill. Gabe tried to reimburse her. She refused. "Go home," she said. He stood beside the crooked gate for several seconds, then left without arguing. That evening, Travis arrived with 20 treated fence posts in his truck. Mara was too tired to pretend she did not know what they were for. "Wade know you brought those?" Travis lowered the tailgate. "They were extras." "From where?" "The north field." "So no." He rubbed a hand over his mouth. "Your guards got washed out, and you want to fix them where he can't see you." "I'm here, aren't I?" Quietly, at dusk. "Mara, they're fence posts." "No. They're you getting to feel like my brother without disagreeing with him." Travis stared at her. She wanted the posts. She needed them. One side of the nursery row stood open, and the river had carried away half her stakes. But accepting secret kindness would allow everything public to remain unchanged. "If you think what Wade did was wrong," she said, "tell him. He knows I didn't like the timing. Tell him here. Tell him in the field. Tell him where it costs you something." Travis lifted the tailgate. "You make it hard to help you. You make it easy to hide me." He flinched as if she had slapped the truck door. For a moment, Mara thought he might unload the posts anyway. Instead, he secured them and drove away. She stood alone between the damaged grafts and the packing house until the light disappeared. Then she reset the nursery fence with the crooked stakes she already owned. One of the crooked stakes failed before midnight. Mara heard wire snap from the packing house and found a section of fence folded over the nursery row. Nothing had entered. The grafts stood unharmed beneath a quarter moon. She retied the wire, drove the stake deeper, and sat in the mud with the post driver between her knees. Anger had carried her through the first repair. It did not carry the second. Her shoulders shook from fatigue. She had slept 4 hours in 2 days, missed a meal she could not remember planning to eat, and refused useful things from 2 men because their help arrived tangled in assumptions. The fence remained crooked. Beatrice found her there after sunrise. She said nothing about Mara's swollen eyes. She tested the repaired wire, walked the nursery row, and removed a strip of grafting tape that had begun cutting into new bark. "You'll strangle this one," she said. "I checked it Monday. Tree grew since Monday. Root of it." Beatrice slit the tape and rewrapped the union loosely. "You trying to restore every row?" Mara looked across the floodplain. "Eventually? No. No what?" "No, eventually." Lower 8 rows stayed wet too long before Earl quit. Apples failed there even when we maintained the channels. Gabe said apples were near the building. Some. Orchard changed over the years. So what do I do with the lower rows? Let them hold water. I thought standing water killed roots. Then don't put pears in it. Beatrice walked toward the collapsed grass between ridges. The recent storm had left thin deposits of red soil from Wade's field. She pressed a boot into one layer and scraped it aside. "Lenora made this place produce fruit," she said. "That doesn't mean fruit is the only thing it can produce. What does water produce?" "Questions, mostly." Mara waited. "Willow. Persimmon on the higher pockets. Pawpaw where it drains. Native grass to catch sediment. You keep the best pear rows. Use the rest to slow water before it reaches them. That isn't restoring the orchard. It's keeping one." The distinction bothered Mara all morning because she knew it was right. She had been treating every exposed ridge as a command from the past. Save this. Rebuild that. Put back what Earl allowed to disappear. It was another way of letting her father decide the work. They spent the week marking only the 12 highest rows for fruit. The lower channels became spill paths. Mara wove flood-thrown branches between willow posts to catch debris without forming solid dams. She made the nursery fence in short sections that could be unclipped and carried uphill before a major rise. Every graft received a metal tag stamped with its row and crown number. The orchard looked less romantic and worked better. After the first cold night, Mara found a paper sack hanging from the gate. Inside were 2 pairs of heavy gloves, a bag of stainless washers for the removable fence, and the $12 she had tried to pay Gabe for the roof bolts. There was no note. She put the money in her pocket and drove to Mercer Repair after her shift. The shop occupied a cinder-block building beside an equipment yard full of machines waiting for parts or forgiveness. Gabe was beneath a tractor with only his boots visible. Mara stopped beside them. "You're making this difficult." His boots shifted. He slid out on a mechanic's creeper, wiped one cheek with his sleeve, and left a streak of grease beneath his eye. "I've heard that recently." She held up the sack. "Are the gloves another repaired offer?" "No. They're an apology with fingers." "The washers?" "Apology hardware. And the money? Yours. You already lost your deposit on the gravel. That was my expensive educational experience." Mara leaned against a workbench. "I shouldn't have compared you to Wade." "No, you shouldn't have. I was angry. You were right about the part before that." He sat up. "I heard you say no and decided I knew the reason. Thought you were scared of owing me. Figured if I removed the money problem, you'd see it was a good idea. You didn't remove the money problem. Yes. I've completed the course now." She looked at the grease beneath his eye. "It was a good idea." "I know. I still couldn't afford it. I know that too." The tractor above him gave a metallic tick as it cooled. Mara put the $12 on the workbench. Gabe picked it up and placed it back in the sack. "If we keep doing this," she said, "we'll wear out the money, then buy me supper. You used that line already." "It worked, temporarily." He stood. "I won't order anything. I won't repair anything you haven't asked me to. I will occasionally tell you when a building is preparing to kill you." "Reasonable. And if you ask for help, I'll ask what kind." Mara nodded. "Anything else?" he asked. "Yes." "You have grease on your face." He wiped the wrong side. "No, farther left." He wiped his ear. She stepped closer and cleaned it with her thumb. Gabe rested one hand lightly at her waist, but did not pull her in. "What kind of help is this?" he asked. "Maintenance?" He kissed her only after she smiled. They dismantled the packing house's rear wall the following Sunday. Mara asked first. Gabe brought tools after confirming which ones. Beatrice supervised from a lawn chair and claimed the arrangement was excellent for her blood pressure. The wall came down board by board rather than under the next flood. They saved sound lumber, stacked corrugated sheets on the high platform, and braced the 2 remaining bays. Beneath the lowest sill, Mara found a row of rusted hooks and one flattened metal cup. Beatrice turned the cup in her hands. "Lunch bell hung here. The one Travis remembers? Lenora rang it like she was warning ships. Did Dad really make them wait behind him? He thought being first in line made him foreman. Beatrice handed back the cup. Wade thought it too. Mara looked toward the home fields, visible now through the gap where the hedgerow had stood. Fresh grass covered part of the new waterway, thin and bright against bare soil. In other places, rain had cut narrow red grooves. Wade's first annual payment arrived 3 weeks late. He brought the check to Sud's Spin instead of mailing it. Mara found him downstairs feeding quarters into a dryer for a load of shop towels. "You know I live above a laundromat," she said. "You didn't have to invent laundry." He pushed another quarter into the slot. "My dryer smells like diesel now. Denise Ferris would call that a consequence. I don't live with Denise. I assumed you meant her green beans." Wade shut the dryer door. He looked tired enough that his face had lost some of its authority. "The account was short after the combine repair," he said. "That's why this is late." Mara checked the amount. It was correct, thank you. His eyebrows rose slightly, as if he had prepared for a fight and resented not using it. "Travis thinks we should replant part of the hedge," he said. "What do you think?" "I think he's been spending too much time down there. He came twice. That's twice more than he came to help with the combine." Mara folded the check. "You wanted to keep the operation because you and Travis worked it together. Maybe that requires listening when he disagrees." Wade laughed once. "He disagrees after I make the hard decision. He learned from Dad. So did you." The dryers turned behind them, towels rising and falling against the glass. "You were right about one thing," Mara said. "The orchard isn't a gold mine. I never wanted you to fail. You needed me to." His gaze sharpened. "If the floodplain stays worthless," she continued, "then giving it to me feels less like a choice. It's just the natural order of things. You farm. I don't. You belong there. I belong somewhere else. That's not what I think." "Then what do you think?" Wade looked toward the ceiling, where the faint vibration of Mara's room traveled through old pipes. "I think if Dad had given you the home place, you would have stayed in it and hated us every day. He didn't give any of us anything separately. You know what I mean. She did." Wade had imagined himself preserving the farm, and in that picture, Mara's pain was unfortunate scenery. "I would have liked the chance to decide," she said. He nodded once. It was not an apology. It was more than denial. At the door, he paused. "Weather Service says the river could crest high next week. I've been watching. The east field grass is coming in. Not enough?" His face closed again. "It's seeded. Seed is not roots." He left. Rain began before dawn on Friday and continued through Mara's night shift. By Saturday, the Wabash had risen over its lower banks. Mara slept 3 hours, drove to the orchard, and unclipped the nursery fence in a steady downpour. Gabe helped carry the panels onto the platform. He did not ask whether she wanted him there, because she had called him. Beatrice packed grafting supplies into plastic tubs. "Take the tags off anything that could catch debris," she said. "Leave the wire guards. They'll go or they won't." Mara opened the lower spill channels and checked the tile outlets. Water moved fast but clean. By Sunday morning, the rain had not stopped. Red runoff poured from Wade's east field, crossed the road, and struck the floodplain with enough force to roll branches. Mara's woven barriers caught the first debris. The second barrier bent. Water spread between the lower rows as intended, slowing before it reached the pair crowns. The system was working. Then a mass of uprooted Osage limbs lodged across the upper spillway. Water backed toward the road. On the opposite side, Wade's field swale overflowed and began cutting along the shoulder toward the lower equipment barn. Mara was waist-deep in wet cane when Wade called. "You have water dammed below the culvert," he said. "Your hedge is dammed in my spillway. I need that outlet open, so do I. The lower barn's taking water. I can see it. Then get your barrier out." "That isn't my barrier. It's the trees you pulled." A truck horn sounded across the road. Travis had arrived with Wade, both of them in rain gear. Wade stood beside the culvert, pointing toward the barn. Travis looked at the clogged spillway, then at Mara. "We need chainsaws," she called. "Cut the limbs small enough to pass. If that plug breaks whole, it'll take the nursery and hit your barn harder," Wade shouted. "Travis, get the combine uphill." The brothers stared at each other through the rain. Mara waited for Travis to look away. Instead, he opened Wade's truck, took out a chainsaw, and crossed the road toward her. Wade shouted after him. Travis kept walking. The water at the road ditch reached his knees. He lifted the chainsaw over his head, crossed sideways against the current, and climbed the muddy bank beside Mara. "Tell me where," he said. She pointed to the tangle lodged across the spillway. Osage limbs, cedar roots, and old wire had woven themselves into a single mass. Brown water bulged behind it, climbing by inches. The whole plug trembled under pressure. "Not from downstream," Gabe said. "If it lets go, it takes whoever's standing there." They moved along the edge until they reached the upstream side. Gabe tied a rope around the largest Osage limb and ran the other end around a cottonwood trunk. Travis set the chainsaw down to pull the starter cord. It coughed once and died. "You flooded it?" Mara asked. "It was in Wade's truck." "That doesn't answer me." "It answers enough." He pulled again. The engine caught, whining above the rain. Beatrice stood on the packing house platform holding a long-handled rake. "Cut the wire first." "That saw catches wire. You'll be picking chain out of your face." Travis killed the engine. "I saw it," he said. "You were looking directly past it." Mara waded to the edge of the debris and found the wire by touch. It was old woven fencing twisted through roots, probably dragged from somewhere upstream. Gabe held the rope tight while she cut strands with bolt cutters. Each severed wire snapped back into the brown water. The plug shifted. "Back!" Gabe said. They climbed the bank as water surged through a narrow gap, carrying leaves and corn stalks. The Osage limb held. The rope groaned against the cottonwood. Travis restarted the saw and cut the smaller cedar branches into sections. Mara and Gabe pulled them free with the rope, releasing water a little at a time. The spillway deepened from a choked pool into a fast, controlled channel. Across the road, Wade drove the combine from the lower shed. Its tires threw mud as he turned uphill toward the main barns. Travis watched him go. "Keep cutting," Mara said. "I am. You're watching. I can do both. That's how you broke the tile." He gave her a rain-soaked look and lowered the saw. For 20 minutes, the plan worked. Water spread through the lower orchard channels, slowed against the woven barriers, then moved toward the river. The pair rows remained above the strongest current. Then the road culvert gave a hollow boom. A tree root had struck its mouth. Water jumped the ditch and poured over the road in a broad sheet. Part of the gravel shoulder collapsed. The stream toward Wade's lower barn doubled. Gabe grabbed Mara's arm and pulled her back from the crumbling edge. "That crossing's done," he said. "Nobody drives through now." Beatrice had come down from the platform. "There's another spill line east of the old quince rows." Mara wiped rain from her eyes. "It isn't on the map, because Lenora filled it after the '79 flood." "Why?" "Lost 2 trees to scouring." "Can we open it?" "Can you find it?" Beatrice looked toward a low band of switchgrass. Mara followed her gaze and saw a shallow curve almost hidden beneath the moving water. It led away from the blocked culvert and toward a willow depression below the packing house. Opening it would send more water through the orchard. Leaving it closed would force the runoff toward the road and the bell barn. "How deep?" Mara asked. "Not deep. Wide." Gabe understood first. Spread the flow instead of trenching it. "Congratulations," Beatrice said. "Your father taught you one thing." Wade appeared on the far side of the washed crossing, running from his truck. "What happened to the road?" Mara almost laughed. "It got wet. The seed truck's still in the lower barn. Then move it. I can't cross. You can reach the barn from the north lane. That lane's soft. So is my entire inheritance. Keep moving." He looked past her toward Travis. "You need to bring the backhoe down." "No," Mara said. Wade's head turned. "The spillway's clogged. We're opening the old east channel by hand. A backhoe will sink and cut through the ridges. My barn is filling, because your field is emptying. We do not have time for this." Travis set down the chainsaw. "She's right." Wade stared at him through the rain. "The backhoe will make a chute," Travis continued. "It'll throw water straight at the lower barn once it gets past her rows." "You're an engineer now?" "No, I've been standing in it." "You should have moved the combine. I'm helping clear the outlet. I told you what needed doing." Travis looked at the bare east field, where muddy water ran through grooves that had widened into gullies. "You always tell everybody what needs doing," he said. "Then you call whatever happens afterward weather." Wade went still. Beatrice leaned toward Mara. Useful, but poorly timed. Mara nodded. Family specialty. Another surge struck the debris plug. The main Osage limb rolled against its rope. Argue uphill, Gabe shouted. We need this bank clear. Wade did not leave. He crossed the ditch on foot, water rising above his boots, and came to the spillway. What do you need? He asked Mara. The question was so unfamiliar in his mouth that she nearly missed it. Shovels, she said, and people who listen. He nodded once. They cut the rope from the Osage limb only after Travis had sectioned every branch that could catch. When the trunk finally rolled free, water surged through the spillway, brown and violent, but no longer trapped. The first brush barrier bowed, released part of the debris, and held. Beatrice directed them to the buried east channel. Mara found the old contour by walking until the water reached the same mark on both boots. Gabe cut sod with a mattock. Wade and Travis shoveled side by side without speaking. The channel did not look like enough. It was barely a broad depression, inches lower than the grass around it. But when they opened its upper end, water entered and flattened across 20 feet instead of carving one path. Switchgrass bent beneath it. Willow stems trembled and remained rooted. The level beside the road began to drop. Wade watched the change. That was here the whole time? Under the ground you gave me, Mara said. His face tightened, but he returned to the shovel. By dusk, the rain grew colder. Beatrice's hands had begun shaking. She denied it twice before Mara took the rake from her. You're going home, Mara said. I can sort supplies. You can sort them tomorrow. Water doesn't wait for tomorrow. Neither does hypothermia. Beatrice looked ready to argue until Gabe said, I'll drive you. No, you're needed here. I'll take her, Wade said. Everyone turned toward him. His truck remained on the high side of the road. He could reach Beatrice's house without crossing the washout again. Beatrice narrowed her eyes. You drive like Earl? Only when insulted. Then we'll go slow. Before leaving, she caught Mara's sleeve. If the upper outlet backs, abandon the packing house. The trees can take more water than that roof can. I know. No, you know with your head. Learn it with your feet. She stepped close enough that Mara could smell wet wool and pear soap. Don't die for evidence, Beatrice said. The packing house lost half its roof before midnight. Wind lifted the loosened corrugated sheets and peeled them backward with a sound like the sky tearing. Gabe and Mara were dragging nursery panels onto Vernon's hay wagon when the first sheet struck a cottonwood and wrapped around the trunk. Mara started toward the building. Gabe blocked her. The grafting tubs are inside. Under which part? North Bay. The roof just moved south. I can reach them. No. The word landed hard between them. Mara looked at him. I am not deciding what you can afford, he said. I'm telling you metal is flying. A second sheet ripped loose. Mara stepped back. They left the tubs. The old packing house leaned in the rain, one bay open to the black sky. Pear boxes floated from the platform and bumped gently against the nearest row. The blue name boards remained bolted to the interior wall Gabe had braced. Mara watched water climb the platform supports. It hurt. Not because the building was valuable, but because she had begun to believe care created a contract. She had worked so the wall should stand. She had listened so the water should behave. Beatrice had been warning her against that belief from the first shovel cut. Travis returned from the lower barn, driving an old tractor with the seed wagon behind it. Wade followed in the grain truck. They had taken the north lane slowly and reached higher ground before the road ditch rose again. The seed bags on the bottom row are wet, Travis said. Rest are okay. Wade jumped down from the truck, pumps losing prime. Gabe grabbed his tool bag. Mara looked toward the orchard. Water flowed through all three reopened drains and both spill channels. The lower rows had disappeared. Only the tops of the wire guards marked where the young grafts stood. At the third barrier, debris had piled high enough to divert water toward the nursery. I need to clear that, she said. Travis reached for the chainsaw. No saw. Too much wire. I'll come. They waded along the high side of the row, carrying hooks and a rope. Gabe and Wade went to the pump near the barn. At the barrier, Mara could feel current pulling at her legs. She clipped the rope around her waist and handed the other end to Travis. This is a terrible knot, he said. It's Gabe's. Then it's probably fine. She used the hook to pull corn stalks and branches from the woven barrier. Water pressed each piece against the willow stakes. When one branch came free, the current spun it hard against her hip. Travis tightened the rope. You good? Yes. You said that like Dad. I'm wet and angry. We all sound alike under pressure. Another branch released. The water level shifted. finding the intended gap between two lower rows. The nursery guards stopped trembling. From the road came the cough of the pump restarting. A set of headlights appeared on the north lane. Wade's truck returned. He parked high and walked down carrying 2 lanterns, which he set along the channel so Mara and Travis could see. No one thanked him. He did not seem to expect it. They worked through the night. Wade hauled soaked seed bags onto pallets. Gabe kept the pump running. Travis cleared debris. Mara moved between the orchard channels, checking each outlet and cutting away anything that forced water against a living crown. When her hands stopped closing around the shovel, Wade took it from her. "I can do it," she said. "I know." He began digging. Near dawn, the rain weakened. The river still rose, but the violent runoff from the fields slowed. Water spread across the floodplain in wide brown bands. The old rows interrupted it again and again, taking force from the current. Behind the lower brush barriers, red soil settled in deep fans. Soil from the Bell Fields. Wade stood beside one deposit and stared. "That all came off the east piece?" he asked. "Not all," Mara said. "Some kept going." His gaze moved uphill toward the raw gullies. The lower barn had taken 6 inches of water. The equipment had been moved. The structure stood. In the orchard, 2 wire guards were gone. One graft had snapped. Another leaned beneath water but remained attached. The old Kiefer pear had lost a major limb. The packing house roof lay in 3 separate trees. Mara walked until she reached the highest surviving crown. A metal tag glinted above the water. Row 4, crown 11. The new graft was still there. She touched the wet stem. It bent beneath her finger and rose again. Travis stopped beside her. Wade remained several yards away, mud to his thighs, looking older than he had the day before. "What now?" Travis asked. Mara looked across the flooded rows. "Now we wait for the water to leave." Wade lowered his eyes. For once, neither brother tried to tell her what would be left. The water left slowly. It dropped from the nursery guards first, then revealed the tops of the lower willow stakes. Mud shone between the rows. Plastic jugs, corn stalks, and branches hung in the woven barriers, but the barriers remained where Mara had put them. On the 3rd morning, the highest channel began running within its banks again. Mara walked it with Beatrice, both of them using sticks for balance. The old Kiefer had split where the large limb tore away. Pale wood showed at the wound. "Can we save it?" Mara asked. "Some of it." Beatrice said the same thing at 6 crowns, 2 grafts, the nursery fence, and what remained of the packing house. Some of it. Mara began to understand that this was not a consolation. It was a method. They cut the Kiefer's broken limb clean and sealed nothing, despite Mara's urge to bandage it. Beatrice said trees needed air more than sympathy. They reset the leaning graft in row 4 and tied it loosely to a stake. 2 other grafts were gone, their metal tags found downstream against a willow. The tile channels had carried water until the main river covered their outlets. Once the river fell, they emptied again. The lower spillway held no standing pool. Red soil from Wade's east field lay trapped behind the brush barriers in deposits thick enough to fill a shovel. Wade came down alone. He wore the same mud-stained boots from the flood, as though changing them would pretend the night had not happened. He stopped at the first sediment fan and looked uphill toward his fields. "How deep?" he asked. Mara pushed her shovel blade into the red layer. 4 inches here, more at the second barrier. He crouched, lifted a handful, and rubbed it between his fingers. "That's topsoil." "Yes." He glanced at her. "I know what topsoil looks like." "Then stop sending it to me." His hand closed around the dirt. "The grass waterway didn't establish," he said. "I told you it wouldn't in time. I heard you. You didn't listen?" "No." The word came quietly. Beatrice had moved farther down the row, giving them privacy so obviously that it became another kind of audience. Wade let the soil fall from his hand. The lower barn would have gone if that water hit it straight. "Probably. Your channels spread it. The channels, rows, grass, willows. All of it." He nodded. "Dad said the orchard made flooding worse. Dad stopped maintaining it. I know that now. You knew he stopped. I didn't know it mattered." Mara looked at him. Wade's face was tired and open in a way she had seen only once before, in the hospital after Earl's second stroke. That night he had stood beside the vending machines, holding a package of crackers he never opened. By morning, he had become efficient again. You didn't want it to matter, she said. He looked toward the damaged packing house. One roof bay remained. The Bluebell Orchard's boards had survived on the braced interior wall, wet but intact. No, he said. I didn't. Mara waited. Wade pressed his palms against his thighs and stood. I'll bring the skid loader to move the roof sheets, not until the ground dries. I know. And you stay on the track. I know that too. You haven't been especially receptive to land management advice. A small, unwilling smile moved at one corner of his mouth. I'll ask before I drive. It was not an apology for the house, the funeral day map, the years of care he had discounted, or the parcel he and Travis had decided she should accept. Mara did not turn it into one. All right, she said. Wade took 3 steps toward the gate, stopped, and turned back. I shouldn't have called this nothing. The words were inadequate. They were also difficult for him. No, Mara said. You shouldn't have. He nodded and left. Travis arrived in full daylight with the 20 fence posts. Wade followed in the skid loader. Neither man pretended the posts were extras. Travis unloaded them beside the nursery while Wade waited at the gate for Mara to show him where the machine could travel. When she pointed to the driest edge of the track, he followed it precisely. They recovered 2 roof sheets from the trees. The third had folded around the cottonwood too tightly to save. Gabe brought tin snips after Mara called and asked for them. He handed her the tool without beginning a repair. What kind of help? He asked. Get the sheet down without dropping it on Wade. Wade looked up from the skid loader. I'm flexible on that requirement, Gabe considered. Budget option? Full service, Mara said. They cut the metal into sections and stacked it near the packing house. The surviving bay would be shortened and rebuilt. Mara did not try to restore the building to its original length. 1 dry sorting space, 1 safe roof, 1 platform high enough for ordinary rises. Some of it. At noon, Travis sat beside her on the loading platform. Wade and Gabe had gone to check the pump at the lower barn. Beatrice sorted recovered wire below them, rejecting anything with deep rust. Travis held a sandwich without eating it. I told Wade, I'm replanting the hedge, he said. We've discussed hedges. I'm paying for the trees out of my share. Mara looked at him. Does he agree? No. Is that why he's doing it? No. Travis turned the sandwich in its wrapper. I told him the east strip stays out of production until the waterway roots. If he wants to argue about it, he can do it without me in the tractor. That had cost him. Mara could hear it in the careful flatness of his voice. What did Wade say? A lot. Anything creative? He said you got into my head. Did you tell him there wasn't room? Travis laughed, then looked down at the sandwich again. When Dad went into hospice, he said, Wade and I talked about the farm because it felt like somebody had to. We kept saying you weren't interested. I wasn't invited. I know. You knew then. He nodded. The platform boards warmed beneath the weak sun. Water dripped from the remaining roof at long intervals. We counted you taking care of Dad like it was just something you chose, Travis said. That way we didn't have to count what it cost. Or what we weren't doing. Mara felt the apology reach the place his earlier sorry had missed. She did not rush to make it easier for him. You left me alone in that house, she said. Yes. Then you decided I didn't belong to it. His eyes filled, though no tears fell. Yes. Mara picked a strip of dried pear butter from the edge of her thumbnail. I don't know what to do with that yet, she said. You don't have to do anything. You say that now, I'll keep saying it. Below them, Beatrice held up a length of rusted wire. If this conversation is finished being tender, one of you throw this away. Travis wiped his face with his sleeve and climbed down. He came back the next weekend. And the next. Not secretly, not at dusk, and not only when Wade approved. He dug post holes for the nursery fence, rebuilt the second brush barrier, and replaced every clay tile he broke. Mara did not call it forgiveness. She gave him work and watched what he did with it. Wade replanted the hedgerow with Osage orange and elderberry. For 2 seasons, it looked like a row of sticks marking a bad decision. He kept the lower strip in grass anyway. When the first annual payment after the flood came due, the check arrived 3 days early. Gabe waited until the orchard sold enough grafted trees and fruit to afford 1 load of crushed stone. He stood at the gate with his phone in his hand. Would you like me to order gravel? How much? He showed her the quote. Where will it go? Only from the road to the high turn. Geotextile underneath. No change to the drainage. Who pays? You. Good answer. "Is that a yes?" Mara made him ask once more, because his irritation amused her. The repaired track did not transform the floodplain. It gave delivery trucks 30 dry yards and saved Mara from carrying every box by hand. The rest remained grass, mud, and paths shaped around the water. She and Gabe did not move quickly after that. He kept his house. Mara kept the room above Sud's spin until the annual payments in the orchard nursery allowed her to rent a small place on high ground 3 miles away. Marlene complained that Mara had become so accustomed to washer vibration she would never sleep in a stationary building. Mara still worked at the nursing home, though she gave up one-night shift when the nursery began selling consistently. Patrice said she looked less composted. Mara said that was the closest Patrice came to tenderness. The lower rows became willow, switchgrass, persimmon, and pawpaw. Pears remained on the highest ridges. Mara grafted kefir for durability, zekel for flavor, and 2 unnamed survivors Beatrice refused to identify until they bore enough fruit to judge. Lenora called everything by the name she bought it under, Beatrice said. Trees don't read catalogs. The damaged graft in row 4 grew. The old kefir survived its split and produced fewer pears the following year, then more the year after. Celia Navarro bought every sound box Mara could bring and began ordering green fruit for chutney, as well as ripe fruit for hand pies. Other kitchens took preserves and poaching pears. None of it made Mara rich. The orchard paid for fencing, fuel, grafting supplies, repairs, and eventually part of her rent. That was enough to change its future. Beatrice returned to the packing platform each spring, with knives wrapped in an old dish towel. At first she taught only Mara, then Gabe learned to make clean grafting cuts. Travis learned after slicing 3 crooked ones and blaming the knife. A few neighboring growers came to watch. Beatrice charged them because she was not a museum. The blue name boards went back on the rebuilt wall. Mara did not paint over the water stains. The first full pear harvest arrived in the 4th autumn after Earl's death. Full did not mean the hundreds of workers or truckloads Beatrice remembered. It meant 12 productive rows, a nursery strong enough to supply replacements, and more fruit than Mara, Gabe, Beatrice, and Travis could sort in a day. Wade brought pallets from the grain shed. He set them where he thought they should go, reconsidered, then asked Mara. North end, she said. Sound fruit nearest the road. Butter pile by B. Beatrice called from the platform. Bruise pile. Butter is what happens after work. Wade moved the pallet. The 3 siblings sorted beneath the surviving section of roof. Travis told the story of breaking the drainage tile as if it had been a technical experiment. Wade disputed every detail. Mara listened to them argue and realized neither man had once referred to the floodplain as the mud piece all season. Near noon, the river began rising from rain farther north. It was an ordinary rise, slow and expected. Mara unclipped the lower fencing. Gabe moved the nursery panels. Travis checked the outlets without being asked. Wade drove the empty pallets to high ground. Water entered the lower channels that evening and spread through the willow rows. It left the pears untouched. 2 mornings later, Mara walked down from the road as the river withdrew. Silt lay in thin fans behind the brush barriers. Switchgrass lifted gradually from the mud. The old ridges emerged one after another, not bare and mysterious now, but green, pruned, and working. Gabe waited by the packing house with coffee. Beatrice was inside, criticizing the size of Travis's sorting piles. Wade's truck came down the gravel track carrying the last empty boxes. Mara stopped beside row 4. The graft that had survived the Great Flood had grown into a young pear tree. 3 pieces of fruit hung from one slender branch, small and rough-skinned, not yet ready to pick. She touched the metal tag, still stamped with the number she had given it, when numbering things was the only way she knew to hope. Behind her, Wade called, "Where do you want these?" Not where they belonged, not where Dad kept them, not where he had already decided. "Where do you want them?" Mara looked across the rows her brothers once believed had disappeared, then toward the open bay of the packing house. "Bring them to me," she said. Wade did.